Welcome to the DMZ, a place to practice good faith rhetoric, not just farm gotchas and dunks. We use structure to cultivate conversations where you have to stop and listen to the other person, even if it is just to find the flaws in what they are saying. Please check your weapons at the door, take notes, and attack the belief, not the believer. After each debate, there will be a free link to where you can go to vote on which side you believe made the most compelling case. So, sit back, relax, and cast those votes. This is the DMZ. Please tell everybody who you are, what you're about, and where they can find you.
So I'm stillborn. I'm an Orthodox Christian catechumen, and I do cultural commentary. I do debates on philosophy, politics. I tend to stay out of the normative politics realm just because there's way too much you need to research for that, and I don't have that kind of time. But you can find me over on Verbal Combats, most Fridays, or sometimes over here at the DMV or DMZ. And I'm actually really excited for this one. So.
Cheers. So am I, sir. All right. And the captain of the other team, Kay, same thing to you. Please tell us who you are, what you're about, and where we can find you.
My name is Kay. I just work behind the scenes for Horseradish, and sometimes I stumble on stage. That's about it.
And we appreciate it every time. All right. And now over to you, Mr. Emmett. Please tell everybody who you are, what you're about, and where you're found. I'm going to drop your link into the chat as well.
My name is Emmett. I do art and political debates. I do also meta-ethical debates. So you can find me at Count Emmett, and most of my stuff is working with either art or debate itself.
All right. And over to you now, Mr. Castle. Castle, please tell everybody who you are, what you're about, and where they can find you.
Yeah, so I go by Castle on here, but you can find me mostly on other social media platforms like YouTube, Twitter, and I guess Twitch at Castle Guard. I'm a center-left political commentator. I usually just debate on here, but I've been looking at other platforms to debate on, some similar to other folks on here as well. And I did do most YouTube videos a year ago or so and hadn't done one in a while, but I am going to drop one very soon. So hopefully more YouTube videos coming along for this year, especially as the political midterm environment heats up. So yeah.
Very good. Glad to hear you're branching out. Sad to hear you're branching out. Abe Dinkus, please tell everybody who you are, what you're about, and where they can find you, other than the Oval Office.
Sure. I'm Abe Dinkus. We do a little bit of everything on my channel. There's debates, there's religious talk, there's comedy, there's just kind of everything. So you can find me at Abe Dinkus on YouTube. I am going to be branching out more into like Rumble and other platforms as well. So keep an eye out.
Very cool. I did drop Abe's link in the chat, right? You know what? I did, but for some reason it didn't work. I'm going to do it again. There's something missing? Control V. There it went. All right, it worked that time. All right, last but not least, let's try that again. Circa, tell everybody who you are, what you're about, and where they can find you.
Hello, my name's Circa. I stream on Twitch and YouTube, and I yell at my own reflection. You can find me there. I do economics mainly, and then I talk about pretty much anything that anyone wants to talk about. I like deep conversation, and then I like debate.
We do like debate here, that is for sure. All right, so For everybody out there in the chat who does not know how this works, we are going to be doing a 3v3 debate. This is sort of a team competition where the captains call the shots. We go back and forth between the debaters in the openings and the cross-examinations. The cross-examinations can be rebuttals or cross-examinations. It's ultimately their time to use as they see fit. After that, any debaters who have not been up against each other are going to find themselves in the championship rounds facing one another for 10 minutes of open forum conversation. Then after that, we're going to go to the same cycle, same order, 3-minute closings. And all along there, you guys in the audience need to be paying attention because you are the ones who decide who wins this debate. Also, if you guys have any questions that you think got left on the table or anything you think got missed, go ahead and chuck a couple bucks into the tip jar and give us your question. And those questions will end up in the part where you guys are choosing. So, that said, one more time, democracy does not work. So, Steelborn, you are the captain for the affirmative team. Sir, who is going to be the first opener?
I'm going to go first.
You're going to go first. Fantastic. Well, then in that case, 3 minutes is going on the clock. Steelborn, please tell the folks why democracy does not work.
All right, so tonight I'm going to be affirming the resolution that democracy does not work. Now, let's define what it means for a political system to work. A political system works if it consistently produces competent governance, promotes national stability, protects the long-term interests of a nation, and leaves future generations better off than the present one. I contend that democracy actually fails on all 4 counts here. So I have 4 arguments. Each one of them I have in a syllogistic form. Makes it a little easier for everybody to understand the argument. First argument is that democracy creates political tribalism and destroys national unity. Premise 1, any political system that rewards division will produce division. Premise 2, democracy rewards politicians for dividing citizens into competing voting blocks. Therefore, democracy produces division. In democratic systems, politicians do not gain power by uniting the nation. They gain power by mobilizing one group against another. Elections reward outrage, fear, identity politics, and partisan loyalty. Over time, citizens begin to identify less with their nation and more with their political tribe. The result is increasing polarization, social fragmentation, and declining national cohesion. My second argument is that democracy assumes an informed electorate, but most people are either too stupid or too busy to govern effectively. Again, the syllogism here is pretty straightforward. A system that depends on informed decision-making cannot function properly when most decision-makers are uninformed. Premise 2, democracy depends on informed decision-making by voters. Premise 3, most voters lack either the time, expertise, or incentive to become informed on complex political issues. Therefore, democracy cannot properly function. Modern governments manage economics, foreign policy, energy infrastructure, demographics, trade, and national security. Most citizens have jobs, families, and personal responsibilities. It is unreasonable to expect the average voter to become an expert in these fields, and as a result, elections often become contests of emotion, popularity, and marketing rather than competence. My third argument is that democracy prioritizes short-term political gain over long-term national prosperity. The syllogism is this. Any system that rewards short-term incentives will neglect long-term interests. Democratic politicians are rewarded primarily for winning the next election. Therefore, democratic politicians will prioritize short-term benefits over long-term solutions. This explains why every democracy in history has repeatedly struggled with national debt, housing shortages, declining birth rates, failing infrastructure, and other long-term challenges. Politicians gain votes by delivering immediate benefits while delaying costs into the future. The next election matters more than the next generation. My fourth and last argument is that democracy enables the present generation to exploit future generations. A system is unjust when those making decisions do not bear the cost of those decisions. Premise 2, democratic voters and politicians can impose costs on future generations that cannot vote. Therefore, democracy allows unjust exploitation of future generations. Through debt accumulation, inflationary policies, unfunded obligations, and short-sighted economic decisions, current voters can effectively vote themselves benefits while spending the bill to their children and grandchildren. Future citizens have no representation despite bearing many of the consequences. You guys care if I take another 30 seconds to finish this up?
You just keep going, buddy.
All right.
Go for
And
it.
finally, democracy often selects for popularity rather than competence. Premise 1, a selection system produces the traits it rewards. Premise 2, elections reward charisma, fundraising ability, media performance, and popularity. Therefore, elections tend to select for those traits rather than competence in governance. These skills required to win an election are not necessarily the skills required to govern a nation. So in conclusion, democracy does not work because it systematically rewards division over unity, popularity over competence, short-term thinking over long-term stewardship, and present interests over future generations. These are not accidental failures, they are predictable outcomes of the incentives built into the democratic system. Now remember, the prompt is not, does democracy does democracy work and have problems? Or does democracy have problems, but it's just better than all the rest? No, it's does it work? I gave you a criteria for what makes a governing system work. Democracy fails on all 4 counts.
All right. And now, Kay, who is going to be cross-examining Steelborn?
Yeah, we found that to be a problem, so we decided to democratically vote on it, and we decided on Circa
All right, Circa.
to solve the problem.
Yep, no worries. Okay. And there we go.
Ready?
Yep, 3 minutes is on the clock, Circa. This is your time to use as you see fit, cross-examine or rebut.
Okay. Steelborn, what is necessary for a syllogism to be true?
It's necessary for a syllogism to be true. The premises have to be true, and then the
Valid
conclusion has to
and
logically follow.
Sound
Yes, valid.
and
That's what valid
sound
means.
in every way, every premise, right?
Yes.
Okay. Everything you said about democracy being able to fail in different ways, that is true. Is it exclusive to democracy?
Nope.
Then how is your syllogism true?
It doesn't say exclusively that democracy has these failings, but democracy does have these failings.
Does democracy exclusively always have those failings?
That's
In
been the
every
historic
case?
trend.
You're making the claim that democracy always fails.
Because it's built into the system.
So you think that corruption or factionalization always happen within democracy in a failing way?
Yes.
Okay. And then second, you mentioned popularity and how popularity is a common thing for democracy. Is that exclusive to democracy?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, so what exactly are you comparing it to?
What am I comparing it to there? Well, republics
Yeah.
can also function in a similar way as a democracy, where basically
That's
like
a form of
whoever the
democracy,
senators.
so that would be a bad idea, right?
Well, it's not the same. Democracy tends to be more so a universal suffrage, where with the republic you can have much more limited suffrage.
You said tends to be, so you already understand that a form of democracy, a democratic ideal like republicanism in this way, is not a good argument, right?
I'm not necessarily making an argument there. I'm just saying that it's not unique to democracy,
Outside
but
of a
democracy still has the
form
problem.
of democratic government, outside of a form of democratic government, why don't you give me a comparator that's not a form of democratic government? What are you putting forth?
I don't have to offer another system just to say that democracy doesn't work.
Are you sure? You think you have no burden?
No, I don't have a burden
What
to give
what does work? Because everything you mentioned is true for every single form of government. I don't see how you've somehow proven the syllogisms.
Well, if you want to give like the counter, like what would be a counter to all these that wouldn't have these failings, I would say monarchy doesn't have these failings. I'm not even necessarily arguing for monarchy, but monarchy doesn't have a popularity contest and such.
Monarchy doesn't have popularity contests?
Nope.
Last part, you mentioned competence in governance, as in like you can measure what competence in government looks like. What does competence in governance look like?
So I actually laid
How do
out.
you
Yeah,
measure that?
I defined this and laid it out. So
What does that
competence in
mean?
government is when it was when the government promotes national stability, protects the long-term interest of the nation, and leaves future generations better off than the present one.
And you think monarchies don't do any of that?
I think monarchies tend to do that much more than democracies.
I don't know what history you're using, but it's certainly not ours.
No, is that really?
All right. So 3 minutes is done. 3 minutes is now going to go on the clock for you, Circa, for your opening. Go ahead and start it up when you're ready, sir.
Oh, snap.
Oh, it's my turn?
Yeah.
I thought. Wait, we don't get to pick openings as well because we.
Yeah,
thought we
no,
all picked openings.
this is how it's always worked, my friend. Whoever you choose to go after, the person who cross-examines then goes next. So
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, Circa's up. So go ahead, Circa.
So democracy does not work because human beings are good. Democracy works because human beings are dangerous. I'm going to take a lean into what Steelborn said in certain ways. I think this is kind of the center. It is not a question of whether voters can be ignorant or whether majorities can be cruel. or whether institutions can decay and be corrupt, or whether public opinion can be manipulated. All of what that is and what Steelborn said is in some ways true. The question is, though, compared to what? And as we heard, Steelborn didn't really have a good answer. Every regime is run by human beings, even a monarchy. Voters are fallible, rulers are fallible, judges are fallible, clergy is fallible. Everyone that I can think of is fallible. So the other side does not win by proving democracy can just fail. Every regime fails. They have to show that their alternative handles this better. So who holds the authority? Who interprets that authority? Who controls public force? What happens when authority fails? What happens to dissenters? What happens to losers? In the form of government that Steelborn just mentioned, losers are eliminated. Now, that may sound really good for the winners, but it certainly isn't a history that's good for the losers. I think our position is a little bit more simple. Democracy works because it keeps power answerable, and failure is contestable, and losers civic. I think democracy allows for a continuous institutional actualization of something that we can akin to civic will. All it means is that public power must remain answerable to the people who live under it. But no majority, court, ruler, party, emergency authority, or human interpreter of moral truth gets to possess that very field. Voting does not get to create truth. Voting creates answerability. It's one way in which a democratic form of government can remain or keep its government answerable institution. A majority can govern inside this, it just cannot possess it. Courts can protect democratic conditions, they cannot own the meaning of that. Experts can advise public judgment, but they cannot rule through competence. That's not going to work. Moral authority may be able to judge politics, but the interpreter of that judgment is still human and fallible. And the loser is the test. A democracy is not only a system where people can win, it is a system where political defeat does not become political annihilation. If the loser can still speak, organize, litigate, vote, and persuade, and return, then the civic field remains wider than just the victor. This is why democracy works, not because it saves us from politics, like Steelborn seems to think we need some answer, but because it keeps politics from being a possession. And I'll end it there.
Steelborn, who's going to cross-examine Circa?
Abe can do it.
Abe, all right. Let's see, that would be boom.
Okay, I talked to Abe. I'm gonna do the cross exam
Oh.
real quick.
Oh, you want to do it? That's fine. I don't care.
Okay, so Emmett?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, we'll do Emmett.
Very cool.
Mm.
That would be A2.
So,
oh, hold on.
let me
There you
know
go.
when-
Yeah, go ahead and get it started. Sorry.
okay, so in your idea, you said that we have to provide a system that works, correct? And the idea that when you look at all the other different ideas, the losers usually are not very happy with the process. For example, in the Weimar Republic, when it fell prey, and all of the things that happened were pretty much voted in, were the losers happy?
No, but that was moving away from
Okay.
democracy, wasn't it? Or did you forget that
Thank you
part?
very much for that. For example, right now we have places that are supposed to be completely democratic, like Russia. Is Russia right now a democratic system that is working perfectly and is not falling into any kind of authoritarianism?
Is Russia moving towards a more democratic system or more towards a non-democratic system?
Well, it would depend on the people who are there. They would tell you that they vote. Do they vote?
Why do I care what they think? Why don't you analyze it?
Well, it's the people, right? The people that are living in their system. They will tell you that they vote. Is that correct?
Does their vote mean anything?
Do they have to mean anything? I don't know where part in your statement you said that they has to be the democratic system has to
Are
be.
you
You said
again?
that
Are
it's
you
contestable
asking me? Are
power.
you trying to ask me? Are you trying to ask
No,
me
I'm
if
not.
democracy?
Yes, I'm not trying to ask
fail?
you that. I'm trying to ask you a question. So listen to the question so you can answer it. Well, you were
Can
saying that it's
question better.
contestable power, but I'm contesting the idea of the contestable power. We have systems that are supposed to be democratic, where you're supposed to vote, and you yourself are saying that their vote
Mhm.
is meaningless.
Yeah, it's
So
failed.
would you
The
say
democratic ideal is no longer there.
it
So
is
it's
there?
moving
They're
away
voting.
from democracy, if you think about it.
I think that is a problem with democracy. Democracy will always move away from itself.
A
When it comes
problem
to
of
the
democracy
core
is moving
ruler or
away from
power,
democracy.
when it comes to
Awesome.
that's a problem with democracy. It will always go away to some tyrannical form.
Is
When
this
you
Schrodinger's
said that,
democracy?
I don't know. It's your position. So is it Schrodinger's? Is there ever been a democracy?
There have been forms of democracy that are chasing the ideal, yeah.
So it depends upon you if they're true democracies or not.
No, it does not depend on me.
What does it depend on?
It depends on if it's moving towards an ideal, like a democratic one.
Okay, can you please tell me what's ideal?
Inclusivity, effective participation. All these are available in Britannica, if you're unaware of that.
Okay. I have another
Yeah.
question real quick. What is the moral authority in this system?
The moral authority?
Mhm.
I mean, technically, the people themselves are the answer to the institutions. So the institutions must serve them. The moral authority would be everyone within the society.
So the moral authority is everyone. Thank you so much, Horse Riders.
Mhm.
You're muted.
Yes, I'm sorry. All right, so Emmett, if 3 minutes is on the clock now for you, sir. Go ahead and start it up when you're ready.
Thank you. So as we demonstrate, by the way, I'm gonna give you the 38 seconds back that the stillborn took, so that we are on normal terms. I don't think I'm gonna take that long. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. When we see this idea of the democracy, for example, when he's talking about the moral authority, who is the moral authority? There is no moral authority. It's supposed to be the people. But if we talk about, for example, Russia, and I said, well, the people say that they're living in a democracy. He says that they're not. They're no longer living in a democracy. The problem with one of the big problems that I see with this system, that it doesn't really work, is that it moves towards some kind of authoritarianism. We see it in, for example, the Roman Republic. It ended up in the empire. These kind of systems, because as stated by Stillborn, are so divisive, they become very unstable. You have two parties; they're looking for power, and power is not something that is shared. In reality, power is the idea that you can do what you want. Normally, when we talk about moral authority, we're talking about what we ought to do, what is the good thing that we should do. If there is no actual moral authority, as stated by Sirkais, anybody is their moral authority. So all of the people, for example, that will go on and abuse others, okay, all the people that will go on and do whatever they want because of selfish desires, they will be actually justified in what they're doing. And we're not only giving those people vote, but we are making our society more unstable thanks to their desires and the fact that we don't have an actual moral authority. So yes, democracy ends up being Schrodinger box. We don't know what it is. Is it an actual democracy? Is that true Scotsman fallacy here? That's not an actual democracy, even though they have the power to vote and supposedly they are voting for the people that are representing them. And at the end of the day, what they will go is try to move in between those two things. It is not a democracy, and it is a democracy at the same time. And by the way, we don't have to present the perfect system to say that the system that we are under is a system that is not working, and we have the status given by Stillborn as to why is it not working. With that, I will finish my opening statement. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, who's going to cross-examine Emmett?
I will.
You will? All right. All right. Kay, 3 minutes is on the clock. Go ahead and cross-examine when you see fit.
Yeah, Emmett, earlier you said democracy is bad when it moves away from democracy. So are you saying democracy is the thing we want? It is the ideal and it's bad when we move away from that system?
I said that it doesn't work because it's not working in accordance to the idea of democracy, right? I didn't say bad. I said
No, not right.
democracy
That's not
will.
what you said.
I didn't say bad. I believe that I said democracy will always tend to lead to authoritarianism.
You did say that it was bad, when that democracy is bad because it moves away from
Okay,
democracy.
then I
But
then I apologize. I misspoke. The point is that democracy is moving away from these ideals, thus it's not moving towards more democracy. It's moving towards authoritarianism.
now, what did you mean when you said democracy is a moral authority? I thought it was just an ideal and a system of which people vote in for the
I said
representation to
that
be heard.
I said that democracy doesn't have a moral authority.
Okay, and you think other systems do have moral authority?
Yes,
And who gives that a moral authority?
it will be God.
You don't think God can be in a democracy?
What it has to do with anything? When you're talking about democracy, we're talking about the people. As stated by Sirkar, the in this
I mean,
case,
God
every
created
single
people,
person
right?
is the moral authority.
God
That
gave
has
people,
nothing to
right?
do with anything.
Did God create people? That's my question.
Sure,
Did he give them moral intuition?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe God gave you the ability to parse right from wrong?
Not without him.
I mean, you're with God always. I mean, that's why we pray. That's why we say God is with you. If he is with every man and
I don't
gave us
know what
moral
you mean by
intuition,
those
why
terms.
can't we vote in a moral way?
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by those terms. And that doesn't mean that you can or cannot. It just means that the system itself is not based upon those terminologies.
Were the people that
And
made like
yeah,
America religious people?
as a clarification, just to be sure, can a person that is not moral vote?
An immoral person can vote, yes.
Okay, that's the point that I'm making.
I mean, immoral people can get into power as well. If humans are sinful, which I think all humans are sinful, the leaders are as sinful as those who vote. Would you
But
want
what?
more okay, when we talk about a system outside of democracy, you're talking about fewer points of failure. You're talking about a few handful of people. That's easier to fall into sin and corruption than multitudes of people. There's hundreds of people who can check and balance and be like, no, listen, this is the moral way based off of their moral intuition. I think the church has actually a lot of power in our current democracy, which helps steer this country.
Which church?
Well, you could pick a multitude of churches. I think the one that you would care about the most would probably be the Catholic Church, right? Or Christian.
Is the Satanic Church have a capacity to actually affect elections?
They have a capacity to vote, but I don't think there's enough of them to sway elections. No.
We're out of time now, but we're going to go ahead and go over to your openings now.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 minutes is on the clock, sir. I'll start it up when you start to talk.
All right. So today I'm going to stand against the claim democracy does not work. But before evaluating the statement, I would like to set the terms. Democracy is a form of government in which citizens have the right to participate either directly or indirectly in governance, while their rights and freedoms are protected by the rule of law and accountable institutions. A political system works when it maintains prolonged stability. This can be measured by creating a basket of desirable outcomes and plotting the history of where we were before and where we are now. And a few things that we can look at are conflict resolution, life expectancy, general prosperity, economic mobility, and the longevity of the systems that we have in play. So let's take a look at this, starting with the Human Development Index, which measures life expectancy, access to knowledge, and standard of living. In the top 25 countries, only one of them is not a democracy. The rest are. In the top 50, 45 of them are democracies, and 5 are not. Taking a broad look at the democratic and undemocratic countries' economies, you can see that democratic nations generally have advanced economies, while undemocratic nations rely either on emerging economies or they have a resource-dependent economy. Advanced economies produce $66,000 per person annually, while undemocratic and hybrid systems produce $7,500 per citizen, meaning the average citizen in a democratic nation generates 8.6 times more economic output than one in an undemocratic country. And for the rich nations, such as Qatar or Saudi Arabia, they rely off of a single commodity like oil or natural gas. So let's look at some more stats. In the top 25 countries with social mobility, all 25 are democracies. Unless if you don't want to count Singapore, let's give it to you. Okay, 24 of them are democracies, one aren't. In terms of healthcare, out of the top 25 countries, 23 of them are democracies. Democracies govern directly in a way that correlates to longer lifespans, the average citizens being able to get care quicker, better, live longer, and be able to address non-communicable diseases more effectively. When it comes to stability, the civilizations that continue to last are the ones that lean into democracies compared to those that don't. And what about general happiness? We like to smile. Well, the top 25 countries, 23 of them are democracies, 2 aren't. Top 50, 35 of them are democracies, 5 are not. Tonight, you're going to be hearing the pragmatic argument, the systematic argument, and the idealistic argument for democracy. And when you hear the arguments, I think you'll be no question on whether it works or not. But I think I'll just leave that up to the vote. I'll end my time.
All right, Abe, 3 minutes is going to go on the clock. This is your time to use as you see fit. You can cross-examine, you can rebut. I'll start the clock when you start to talk, sir. You are muted.
Oh, you're muted, buddy.
It's okay. I've done it like 3 times, man.
3 more.
Nice. That was awesome. Perfect. Okay, Kay, so you made mention that the top financial systems are existing within democracies, right? Or the top rated nations are all democracies.
Countries. And not countries.
Okay. And you used the indexes of wealth and the happiness index to show that those were superior.
I used the IMF for the economic GDP per capita. I use let's see, for the happiness index. Let me pull it up real quick. I used world. Wait, no, that's not world population review. Yeah, it's world population review.
Okay, and can you show how there's a direct correlation between democracy and the monetary and not natural resources or trade partners or the longevity of the nation itself?
For happiness or for the wealth? Sorry.
For either. For either.
Well, I think
Can you
wealth
show
is going
that
to
it's
be
directly correlative to democracy and not the natural resources within that nation or the amount of time that nation has had time to grow and become more prosperous?
Well, I can look at for that you have Venezuela, which had natural resources, but they're nowhere on the list despite their vast, massive resources. You had the collapse of the USSR, who has a plethora of natural resources, and most of those bloc countries aren't even like on the list. Like,
Right, but at that point you would have to claim outside influence of any kind. Like, okay, for instance, the US hasn't had a direct attack upon it or had the nations around it try to suppress its economy in the way that the countries you are saying are bloc countries and have worse economic status. So the countries you're specifically speaking of that are the top nations don't have the same things pushing against their governmental placement, their economies in the way that, say, the bloc nations you've claimed are lower on the list do.
You're saying that there's other factors. I don't disagree with this, but in the case of is it correlative? Yes, we've demonstrated it is for just the like sheer amount of countries that are democracies. Are you going to just say that every country that happens to be in natural resources just happens to become a democracy as well? Or do you think there's a little correlation there?
Well,
it's important to secure your resources and be able to distribute them. Democracy allows you to do so better. Hence, they hold on to those resources longer, use them better, hence happier, wealthier.
Wait, democracy does that or capitalism does that?
Capitalism is a form of democracy. A lot of democracies engage in capitalism.
So capitalism can't exist absent democracy?
I would say that capitalism is democracy manifested in the form of economics.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on in there now, Abe. 3 minutes. This is now time for your opening arguments. So you go ahead and uninterrupted. 3 minutes is on the clock. I'll start the clock when you start to talk.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so democracy is not broken. Democracy is the problem. It rests on a beautiful but fatal lie that the collective opinion of millions of people, most of whom know almost nothing about the issues they decide. Their decisions will somehow produce wise governance. This idea has failed everywhere it has been tried without strong restraints, and even those restraints eventually erode. Consider the core defect: every citizen receives exactly one equal vote, regardless of knowledge, character, stake, or consequence. The single mother working 2 jobs has the same say on monetary policy, nuclear strategy, and genetic engineering as the economist who has studied these fields for decades. The result is not fairness, it's absurdity. We do not let passengers vote on where the airplane goes or what maneuvers they make. Yet, we let them vote on the laws that govern life, death, prosperity, and war. This system selects for charisma over competence, promises over results, and today over tomorrow. Politicians become professional bribe givers, offering other people's money and future liberties to win the next cycle. Voters, rationally ignorant because one vote almost never matters, decide based on slogans, tribal loyalty, and the latest emotional trigger. The outcome is predictable: exploding debt, eroding standards, cultural division, and institutions captured by whoever shouts loudest and donates most. History confirms it. Pure democracies have been short-lived and chaotic since Athens condemned its greatest mind by majority vote. Even representative systems inevitably democratize over time, expanding the franchise, weakening filters, turning republics into vehicles for majority passion. The 20th century showed democracies capable of electing monsters and majorities willingly surrendering freedoms for security or equality. The 21st century shows them incapable of solving basic problems like fiscal sustainability or border security. No version of democracy escapes this. Constitutional guardrails delay the decay. Sortion, ranked choice, or campaign finance reforms merely rearrange the deck chairs. The fundamental error remains: outsourcing critical citizens to numerical majorities instead of proven wisdom, virtue, and skin in the game. Okay, that's
All right. Yeah. Very cool. And then in that case, we're going to go ahead and Castle. You are obviously the one who is left. So you are going to cross examine Abe. 3 minutes is going on the clock for you, sir. Start it up when you're ready.
All right. So you mentioned a lot about how fallible humans are. Not every citizen is informed, but how are you measuring whether a citizen is informed or not enough to deserve political power?
This wasn't specifically about political power. It's about the fact that you can vote for something you have no idea anything about the thing that you're voting on.
Okay,
And
so
even if you have no skin in the game, you don't pay any taxes and you only receive, but you can vote to receive more taxes in benefits or help. How does that make sense?
do you think that an economist is educated enough to vote?
Uh, Probably on economics at the very least.
Okay, so if you're educated in a field and you have like a PhD in economics, you're educated enough to vote just on economic issues, but not enough to vote on other
Well,
socio-political issues. So
my primary claim would be that a huge number of people have no idea on basic civics. And so you may be voting something based on promises rather than an understanding of the system that you're voting for.
How many people that vote in our elections are uneducated on the current political systems?
Probably most, or at the very least,
Based
are
on data or just assuming most?
well, I would say probably based on guesstimation, right? I don't think that there's a requirement for basic civics in all education. I don't see that carried out in general populace
So you're just
in the
guessing most
school
people don't know
systems.
what they're talking about, and
Well, I
then
would say
that's
that
why
there's no
democracy
way for
sucks.
most people to know everything about the situations they're voting on, right? Unless everybody goes to
Do you
school
think
for all
you're
topics.
educated enough? Do you think you're educated enough to
It's
vote?
possible I'm not. It's possible I'm not. And if that's the case, then I probably shouldn't vote.
Do you vote anyway?
Well, currently, because everyone votes. If everybody has the right to vote, then my voice also
Yeah,
needs to
but
be
isn't
heard
it
as
by
much
your
as
own
anybody
system? You're
who's
saying if you don't think you're educated, you shouldn't be voting based
well,
on.
if there was a standard and I didn't meet the standard, then I wouldn't be able to vote, right?
Well, what is that? What are you saying the standard should be?
Well, I mean, in previous generations, we did have standards like, say, you were a landowner or business owner or whatever metric it is that actually gave you some level of skin in the game and a willingness to pay attention to the political system at large, then you had a reason to vote in that system.
Okay, I mean honestly, the way you phrase it that way makes sense because back then we still had a democracy. You're just saying we need a democracy that's more educated.
Well,
Oh,
no,
oh,
because that would be a limitation on the mass vote.
all right. So,
Okay.
Castle, 2 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes is on the clock for you, and I'll go ahead and start it when you're ready.
Okay, so democracy is not the claim that citizens are always correct and that governments never fail or that majorities are always acting justly. It begins more from a realistic premise that human beings are fallible and political disagreement is permanent, and no person, party, or institution can really be trusted with final and uncontestable power. That's why democracy keeps power answerable. So those who govern have to justify themselves through elections, public criticism, the court system, a legislature, a free press, and the possibility of removal. Uh, I know somebody mentioned earlier that politicians are basically just doing the bidding work of lobbyists. But we see all the time that political power is not owned by a ruler, it's held temporarily. Obviously, there have been people in Congress who've had the job for a long time, and there are people in Congress who've been voted out after 2 years in the House of Representatives. So it really all depends on how well you represent the people in your district or state. And this power is held temporarily on behalf of the public and under certain conditions of accountability. So democracy also keeps failure contestable. Every political system makes mistakes that we acknowledged already in this debate. The question is not whether failure exists, but whether the citizens can expose a challenge and correct it. And in a democracy, those bad laws that we don't like can be repealed, and failed leaders can be voted out, and abused power can be investigated. So democracy does not guarantee that right decision will always be made first. It just guarantees that no decision is beyond challenge, which I think is really important. And most importantly, democracy keeps losers civic. Those who lose an election do not lose their citizenship, their rights, or their place in the political community. They remain free to speak, organize, persuade, and compete again. Democracy transforms political defeat from an existential loss into a temporary one, and losers remain opponents, not just enemies. So this is what we mean when we say democracy is the continuous institution actualization of civil will with an open civic field. Our opponents may say that the United States is a republic, not a democracy. We know that these terms are not opposites. They can work together and are mutually inclusive, and a republic describes a system where hereditary monarchy, democracy describes a system in which political authority remains grounded in a way that's answerable to the people. So a representative republic is just a form of democracy. And if they argue that the theocracy, as Emmett said, offers a clear moral code, that we also remember that theocracy does not mean God governs directly. Human beings govern while claiming to interpret God, as Kay perfectly pointed out here, that those interpreters remain fallible as well. And when political decisions are treated as divine commands, disagreement can be condemned as heresy rather than respected as civic opinion. So democracy works not because it eliminates conflict, but because it civilizes conflict. It keeps power temporary, makes mistakes reversible, and every citizen within the political community. And so for those reasons, we strongly rejected the claim that democracy does not work.
All right, Steelborn, you're up. 3 minutes is going on the clock for you to cross-examine Castle. I'll start it up when you're ready.
Yeah, Castle. Let's actually use the United States as an example. What two states have the largest amount of electoral votes?
I believe it's California and Texas, but you can correct
It's California and New York. How would you feel if I told you that 60% of the population of each one of those states can't pass a basic civics test, which has a minimum score of 60?
You're asking what my opinion would be on that?
Yeah, I mean, like I just want to know, I want to hear you tell me that the two states with the largest electoral votes, when over half of their populations can't pass a basic civics test, why should we let them vote?
Well, I think if you're wanting to have a standardized test as something that would improve democracy, I think that's an argument you can make, but I don't think that means anything about why democracy doesn't work. You're just saying that people should be more educated about issues, right?
Well, what's the standard that we should use to decide whether or not somebody's enfranchised or not?
If they're a citizen of the country and they aren't in prison, and we already have certain standards, whether you're registered to vote or not, we have certain standards already, right?
You don't have to register to vote in actually quite a few states.
What do you mean you don't have to register to vote? You have to register to vote.
Well, what's required to register to vote?
You have to have an ID, an address somewhere where you've been getting mail sent to you, just proof of citizenship, proof that you live in the state or in the county or town that you say you do, those things.
Do you have to be a citizen in order to get an ID?
Depends in the state. I know in some states, if you are not a permanent citizen, you can attain a driver's license, or even in New York City, I know that you can vote in certain local elections. So depends on the state.
Yeah, so why should we be letting all these people vote when they can't pass a basic civics test? By the way, so this study is I think it's really interesting. That I think you guys should look at. Study that was done in 2018 showed that only 36% of Americans can actually pass a multiple choice test consisting of items taken from the U.S. citizenship test. Doesn't seem like letting everybody vote when most people are too stupid to even understand how our country works. Why should we be letting them vote in our national elections, or even any elections for that matter?
But you're just pointing out to things you don't like. It's irrelevant to whether the system works, right? Like, we still have a democracy.
How can the system work? How can the system work if everybody's too stupid to even know what they're voting on? How can the system be working to actually, improve the nation, national unity, like the border or defense of the borders, all kinds of this doesn't make any sense for you to want all of these people voting. They don't even know how the country works.
Do you think Donald Trump knows how the country works?
No.
But he can be. Well, he's president.
I know. So. Isn't it great with all this democracy? And we got Trump. I'm sure you're happy about that, right? I'm a democracy.
Right. But that's democracy. That's literally the point of democracy. Is you can still elect anybody that you feel like is worth.
But you think most people who vote for Trump are stupid? They're too stupid. They shouldn't be able to vote because they're too stupid. I
didn't say most people that vote for Trump are stupid. I asked you if you thought Trump was stupid. Doesn't matter if he's stupid or not. It's literally a subjective opinion. There were a majority of the country who believed he was a good business person and a good business leader, was going to be great for the economy, and that's something that they thought was worth voting for. I don't know that makes them stupid, does it? I mean, he could lie to them, obviously, but I don't know how that makes the people stupid for thinking that. That's all I'm saying.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump on in there. So thank you very much, everybody. That was all of our openings and crosses. So you may have noticed that there was one person who you did not face in the middle yet. I'm now going to go through that. It just so happens conveniently, and I always love it when this works out this way, that it's the people above each other and below each other who are going to be in the championship rounds. So we're going to count it down, ending with the captains. That means I'm going to start out with our Level 3 debaters. That is Circa and Abe Dinkus. I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock for you gentlemen. You can pick up the conversation where they were just at. You can take it a whole different direction. Entirely up to you. Please keep it above the belt and get on into it.
Hey, Abe, do you mind if we continue what they were talking about just for a second? Just a little.
You're muted.
You're
Abe,
muted.
You muted, Dave.
Sure, let's go.
you're catching up to me. I'm going to start the clock over.
I'm gonna act like you're stillborn a little, okay? Can a stupid person be the best leader?
Not generally.
They can though, right?
As far as possibility, I think it would just depend on like so many things. I think in general, no.
But they can, right? Even the best leader can be probably the dumbest person. Someone who knows how to pick the right people, the right economists, doesn't mean they need to know
Well-
economics, correct?
Well, that's the issue. You're saying the dumbest person may not know how to choose somebody that is good at the thing. So
The fact that you
if
have to
you're saying the
say
dumbest
may
person,
is
then
all
maybe-
I need to hear. The fact that you have to say may is all I need to hear. Now, second thing, can the smartest person be the worst leader?
no, I don't think they can.
Interesting. Are you
Because
aware of like? Sorry, what were you gonna say?
well, I was going to say if the dumbest person doesn't have enough IQ to even know what's good for themselves or others, then at that point, no,
You're assuming
the
a lot now,
smartest
though,
can't
right?
be worse
What
than
if
that.
the smartest person was
Well, you're
a
saying the
manipulator?
dumbest. If the dumbest is 70 IQ, then or
What if the
60
smartest person
IQ
was a
or 50,
manipulator? Someone who was really good at manipulating.
well, now you're just critiquing human nature, right?
I'm just assuming like you
You're
did,
saying-
though, right?
Well, at this point, you're just basically saying that human nature has flaws, and because human nature has flaws, we shouldn't trust human nature.
I accept that. I'm also not arrogant enough to think that smart people can just somehow lead the world better than good leaders. So, like, and the president. Let's
Well,
just
you
talk
went
about
to
the
the
president.
extremes, right? You went to
I
the
mean,
very extremes, right? The smartest
Manipulator is
and
not the
the
extreme.
dumbest. No, you
Yeah, I
went
did. I did.
to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
to the extremes. So
But these are people, though.
the
You can't just like
dumbest
exclude
person-
them. You know, like it's a fucking test where you have like, false fucking positives. These are real people.
So wait, okay, so you're saying everybody should have the right to vote on things regardless of their capability, their understanding, their. So we should allow
Well, yeah,
every
yeah. So I know
person to-
economics. Okay, I studied economics, and economics is
Okay.
taking words and sentences and turning it into numbers and variables. Now, I heard Steelborn say, it just people who don't know economics can easily promise things about it, right? But the truth is that you actually don't need to know economics to make good economic decisions, do you?
Well, you have to know enough.
No, you don't. You can make good economic decisions without knowing a single thing about economics.
Sure, you could make a good choice, but
So,
doesn't
are
mean
you
that you're
aware
gonna
of
make all good choices
1970s?
economics.
Are you aware of
based.
how South Korea in the 1970s, okay, they set out the state-owned enterprise, or the state essentially said, we want to make a state-owned enterprise for steel. Okay. South Korea has no steel prerequisites, no precursors.
Okay.
There's no way for them to make steel. You know who they decided to choose as the CEO?
Who?
A military general, a guy who had zero clue about economics. And that
Okay.
company today is still probably one of the top 5 largest steel companies in the entire world.
Okay, but this is
He didn't
almost
know
like a
anything
red
about
herring,
economics.
because you're saying a military leader who's been trained to utilize people and to give orders.
Is he
out
trained in
based
economics?
on the skills and abilities
trained in
of
economics?
those people? No, he's
Is he trained in
leading.
economics?
He's trained
Okay,
in
so you don't
leading.
need to know economics to be a good leader.
I didn't say you had to know economics to be a good leader. You asked if poor people could make.
I'm sorry,
good
you guys are
economic
not saying that
decisions.
experts need to be the people who lead. Experts need to be the ones who do
That would
that. I'm
still
pretty
be
sure
an
I heard that.
expert. You're saying a military leader that would still be an expert in leading people. If it is the case that he's
Not
trained
in leading a company.
people,
He's a military leader. He doesn't know how to lead a company.
they would still.
He knows how to
utilize the
lead
same
people to
basic-
shoot people, right?
No,
Abe?
there would still be the same basic tenets there.
You mean they
use
get
the
up in
best
the morning
people
and
for
do
the
drills
job.
and stuff, and then like practice
You use
shooting
the
guns?
best- do you know how the military works? Your leadership
do, yeah.
is trained to understand who needs to fill what positions because they're best for those positions. If you put a
Do you know the
military leader
IQ of this
in
guy?
charge of something like a business,
Do you know
I
his
don't- it doesn't-
IQ?
No.
Okay, so his IQ doesn't matter. He might be dumb actually, but he's a good leader.
But if he was trained well and he understands how to pick people, which does take
So
skill and some level of
IQ is
intellect.
not really what you're asking.
I never made the claim that IQ needs to be high. I made the claim
your
that people
teammates
have
did.
to
Your
know
teammates
things,
did.
understand things.
Okay. So
There's
everyone
no,
understands some
requisite that
things.
you have to
Abe.
be above 120 IQ.
Yeah,
in
everyone
order to
understands some
understand basic
things. Okay,
civics or-
that's true. I get that.
So what's your claim with a military leader leading a steel company and doing well at it? At that
A
point,
man with zero economics expertise ran a company because he was a disciplined leader and made a country that has zero prerequisites or precursors to make steel, is now still one of the top 5 largest steel companies on planet Earth. And
was he
I just want
voted
you to
into that
realize,
position?
no,
Of
he was
military leadership.
he was essentially given it by the state. Yeah.
Interesting.
I never claimed that democracy. I never claimed that, I never claimed that, choosing a central.
for that
I never
company?
said central planning cannot choose correctly. I don't know why you're deflecting now. That's not the problem here. The problem here is I'm attacking your idea that experts need to be the ones who run, because that doesn't mean anything.
Again, the claim isn't that it needs to be experts that lead. It's people that have to have at least a basic understanding
So
of
what
the
did
thing that they
Steelborn mean
are
when he said stupid
residing
people?
within.
What exactly? He wants people to understand civics.
Maybe people that can't function on their own, people that don't have enough.
Aren't you just assuming a lot now?
Well, I'm saying that this would be the case. If people can't manage their own money, can't manage their own daily lives, they probably shouldn't be voting on who manages everyone's.
Well, they don't have to. They vote on whatever they want. We have freedom of doing that. Now, you can actually just abdicate your vote on those things in a democracy. Do you know that?
Sure, if you realize that you should.
People do, democratically.
Okay, and?
Okay, now finally, institutions
The
themselves.
absence of the vote proves there should be a vote? Is that what you're saying?
If you make institutions only answerable to experts within those institutions, then how does an institution know how to stop a negative feedback loop or self-reinforcing ideology without an outside perspective?
Of the outcomes? By the evidence
Except
of the outcomes?
they reinforce themselves. Like, I'm sure you've probably heard this before. Academia is in an ivory tower, right? Closed, cut off. Now, why is that? There's some truth to it. Academia has these self-reinforcing qualities to it, to where it pushes out any other opinions. Do we want all institutions in the United States, economics, legal system, to be beholden to themselves? Or do you want them to serve the people?
Are you trying to make a one-to-one correlation between, say, businesses and government to college
I don't think that's an
education?
answer, man. I don't think that's an answer.
No, I'm asking. Is that
it's
a
an
one-to-one
institution.
correlation?
It's an institution. It functions similarly.
Okay, and what outcomes are measured to see whether or not this institution is doing a good job?
I mean, the institution gets to decide, I guess, don't they? Academia gets to decide whether or not its institution is doing well.
Right, and will it continue to function if it's doing a poor job or failing at its task?
Depends on how much power it has.
Then prompt
the legal
change?
system, if you make judges and if you only allow people to vote on the legal system if they're experts at being judges, then it's going to self-reinforce itself because these people are taught by that very system you're talking about. So how are you going to stop that?
I'm still trying to see how you're tying this to government itself.
These are all institutions.
You're saying a self-referential system.
You don't think the legal system has any effect on how the government functions, how you can maybe go to jail?
Of course it does. Of course it does.
Okay, so what do you mean when you say
now
that?
you're trying to lie. You're saying that because education is an institution and it produces educated people, then people from that institution are going to go into the world and reinforce only that institution for that institution's good and not for the process and benefits that it produces. If it's
but it's also going to teach them, if only people who are experts in that field, the only people who are experts in the very field that taught them what they know, that's going to reinforce the institution itself.
So these people become opinionless once they come through that system.
No, I never said that. I don't
They
know
can
why
no
you would
longer
just
see.
try to argue with
Well,
someone else who's
because
not
you're
here.
saying that they're going to reinforce that system.
The
You're
institution teaches
assuming that they're
people,
going to reinforce
and then these
the
people are
system they're
going to
talking
be institutionally given the information, and they're going to vote accordingly because they've been taught that over time.
Well, they're going to be in the judicial system. They're going to be based on the law, right? They still have to reference
Which
something
they get
outside
to
of the system that
decide,
is
yeah.
the academia.
Which they get to decide.
So they can decide that the law isn't what the law says at all.
It sounds like you
That's
want
what
the
you're-
law to be servicing to the public, though. So maybe you should probably figure that one out. It seems like the public are who actually should be deciding these things.
You're
People
just-
who don't know
the
anything about the legal
public
system.
are the people that enter the same institution that you're talking about.
And when they come
That
out,
institution is built
and
of
when they
the
come out,
people, in and
when they
out.
come out, they are now institutionalized by it.
Brainwashed forever. They just can't make individual choices. It's
No, but it
weird
has a
that you've drawn this
self-reinforcing effect. If
correlation
you don't know
between
this, that's a you problem,
this
man.
institution.
It's like asking why we don't have jurors be judges. You understand why, right?
Because they don't understand the legal system and all the laws and tenets of the laws that are actually supposed to govern what happens in the case or govern the,
So
the general
the
populace.
the public should be jurors, right? For that reason, yeah. Because we want
Okay.
every case to come in with zero bias. If we let judges be jurors, if you think
Zero
about it,
bias is a pretty
you think there's zero
deep
bias
order,
with a
but-
judge who knows the outcome of the case before the case happens. When they walk
I
into the
don't think
courtroom, they
ever
know
zero
90% of
bias.
the time that this case is going to end up in this way, and that's not going to give them bias.
I don't think humans are capable of acting without bias.
They are if they're in the legal system, especially a judge, because he's literally a part of it, isn't he? I mean, he would probably know.
Well, that's odd because you're saying that the institution he was trained by will then
Is going to
institute a
inform him
bias
of
within
how
him.
often this case ends up in a guilty plea, right? Or sorry, a guilty verdict. So that's going to reinforce biases internally. The reason we have people who aren't a part of the legal system come in to be jurors
So are
is
they
because it gives
capable
an
of bias
outside
or not
perspective.
capable of bias? I'm now confused.
Yeah, I don't think you're understanding this. Okay, we can end it here.
You're
You're
muted
muted,
again.
horse.
We're going to go ahead and jump on in there. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next pairing. So, yeah, again, I was going to add more time to the clock, but I figured I'd just let you guys cook until there was a natural pause, which, yeah, you guys got there. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our number 2 set of debaters. That is going to be Emmett and Castle. Gentlemen, once again, 10 minutes is on the clock. If you guys are still cooking at the end of it, I'm going to just keep letting y'all roll until there's a natural pause. So go ahead and start on up.
Okay. Hello, Castle. How
Hello.
you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, whenever we're talking about, for example, the greatest GDP in the world, which is contested between the United States and China, do you enjoy how good the Chinese economy is going in their democratic system?
Do I enjoy how well their economy is going? I mean, technically that's being disputed. I know they have a large economy, but it is basically still commanded by one party rule. So a lot of it is government funded. A lot of it is being propped up by the government, and so their form of, I guess you could call it, a mix of communism and they do have some form of capitalism there. I don't think it's very good long term for their country.
Also, in the long term, it's not going to be very stable. I agree with that. For example, right now, Germany has a GDP growth of 0.79%, which was explained as one of the one of the ideas that, you should be having a democracy. GDP goes up, the printer goes brr. What do you think about that kind of growth rate?
I think Europe has definitely struggled in terms of economic growth, but I think also a lot of that has to do with the industries in those countries, and also a lot of the issues that they're having in Europe has to do with birth rates as well. So they have a lot of older citizens who still need to rely on the government, and then there aren't enough younger people being born, which is why immigration is a huge thing in Europe as well. So I don't know if it's separate from the democracy itself from being poor. I think their economic decision-making skills maybe aren't the best, but I don't think that their leadership skills are being, or what's the problem there.
And who elected the leaders that they have over there in Europe?
I mean, it depends on which country you're talking about. Some of them have parliaments, some of them have different forms of democracies. But yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to defend every leader of Europe right now. I think some are good, some can do better, and also a lot of them are kind of. I'm trying to think if they've been voted out recently or not. I mean, the UK has a leader like every other year, it seems like, so it's hard to keep track these days.
Okay. Oh, so who's exactly being accountable? For example, in the UK, are we gonna be like, oh, this guy that was outed yesterday, maybe is the guy that was accountable, or maybe the new guy, or maybe the one that was 3 years ago, right? Which one is the one that's accountable for the problems in the UK?
Well, the UK is kind of a good example of people that have issues with their governance. They've been voting in and out new people, like I said, every other year. So a few years ago, Boris Johnson was an issue because the country economically wasn't going well. Now Starmer is an issue because of immigration. So he's going to be voted out soon by Parliament or replaced. So I think that the voters have a lot of issues over the past few years that they've gone back and forth with. And that's why you've seen the leaders in that country change so often. But I think that just shows that democracy for them has worked out because they're making it an issue that if you don't listen to the people, they're going to vote you out to make sure that somebody does do something to help, whether it's economically, immigration wise, healthcare wise. I think that's a good thing, right? You can't have a ruler there that's going to just decide what he thinks is the number one issue and just go from there. So I think that's important.
Okay, I don't know exactly about that. They decided to get, for example, away uh, from the European Union, and they have been pretty much sold out because there is a lot more, money involved with people who want to pocket their money. The people who want to have more immigration, the people who have been pretty much selling off their country instead of listening to the citizens. So I wonder. That's what I was asking you. Who exactly is responsible? Who can I go as a citizen and say you are the one that is responsible for allowing, for example, a, a lot of immigrants into my state, and now they are, uh, as happened a little while ago, stabbing a 17-year-old girl.
I mean, again, I don't think that I don't think that when we were talking about how people are not infallible before, makes the
Mm.
argument that democracy is the problem. It's just we've been talking about it this whole time that throughout the other
So nobody is
systems, political
accountable.
systems, we know that you guys don't have an argument for which one is better than democracy. We've already made the point that
I do have
democracies
an.
aren't perfect.
No,
Your
it,
system
it
is what,
doesn't.
monarchy?
The question of the debate is democracy doesn't work. It's not what system would you put in place, instead of democracy. So we're giving you the reasons why it doesn't work. And for example,
Yeah,
right
that's fine.
now I'm
That's
asking
fine,
you,
but
for example, right now I'm just asking you who is the person that is accountable for destroying the UK? Who?
they already have a prime minister. I thought I already told you they've had multiple prime ministers that have been held accountable. They are on
So
like their
the
fourth one at this point.
okay. So the one that they removed and put another in place, and they did the exact same thing for allowing more immigration, for example, that is the new that is accountable. The past one isn't. So the new one that comes after this one is going. Stamer is not going to be accountable anymore because you vote him out, right? It's
Well, that's
the
what
moment you
elections are
vote
for.
someone
You
out,
vote
there's no more
somebody out.
accountability, right?
No, you vote somebody out when they're not doing their job, and then the next person in line who comes into power is then held accountable for what he's promised on what he was elected for, right? Like if you promise to clamp down on immigration and then you don't, then you get voted out, then the next person has to do a better job. That's how it works.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. So let's say that I love libertarians. It's my favorite kind of people. Okay, and I realized that the best business that I can do in my life is to become a great politician. I go into becoming the prime minister of the UK, and I make all the fucking money in the world because that was my idea of why I wanted to go there. I stay 2 years in power. I get all the money that I can. People vote me out. I'm accountable for my decisions. So did I do anything wrong by stealing all the money of these fucking peasants?
Yes, of course. You can still. Do you think that in the UK that you have to serve term 2 years? If you're being like, held accountable for stealing money, they can literally throw you out in like a day. Who is that? Who is that woman in the UK who like lasted less than a head of cabbage in the UK because she was so bad? So it's not like you get a full 2 years to do whatever you want. I mean, we can impeach people in the United States. There are
Yeah, but
systems
after
we have
I'm
in place
done,
that you can be censured for certain things that you do.
oh,
So it's not like you get free reign for 2 years or 4 years or whatever. The democracies that I know of in the Western world act upon certain
mhm.
acts that we deem illegal or wrong, and you're held accountable for that much more ahead of time than just whatever your term says you are.
Okay, but at the end of the day, I did everything right in accordance to what I want, right? Because there's no higher status of what I ought to do. It's just that when I go in, let's say that I'm really charismatic. Okay, people like me. They go with me. They have a great time with the people in Congress. They have a great time with me. Nobody's gonna do that with me. It's gonna take all the money anyway. We're gonna have parties afterward. People vote me after 2 years. Do I have any accountability after those 2 years? Because at the end of the day, people vote me out.
I mean, I guess you can come up with any hypothetical you want, but there are people like this in the current United States government that exists who we've been throwing out of Congress before. Like, look at Bill Clinton. He had sex with an intern. We impeached him for it. So it's not like these things don't go unaccounted for. I'm sure some people get away with it as well, but that's again goes to our
How
system
much?
that it's not
Yeah.
perfect. We do
How
people make
much? How
mistakes.
much time? How much time did he spend out of office? Because he was impeached. I mean, Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton, well, the Senate didn't remove him. He was impeached by the House. So that's different. That's the
So
accountability that
what
we have in our
he?
system. If the Senate didn't, then you
Yeah.
can't remove him.
How much? How did he have to pay anything? Was there any kind of restitution? Was there any actual, any actual problem that he faced after being impeached?
Yeah, I mean, people viewed him pretty poorly after the fact that that came out. So I would think that his moral character definitely took a bunch of hits.
Was he still the president of the United States until he finished his term, his 8-year term?
Yes, he was still the president, but I don't know how that's affecting our democracy. Are you saying that him having sex with an intern is why democracy is failing? I mean, I'm just
No,
saying
I'm
that we can
just
hold
that's not
politicians
that's not
accountable. It
what I'm
doesn't mean
saying.
that democracy is bad.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, for example, when Sir Carr said that there's moral authority, there is none. And when I asked him who, he couldn't say me who. It was the people, somebody. Okay,
Yeah, but
the
Emmett, where are you
system in and
getting
of
your moral
itself
authority
gets.
from? You said you got it from
I
God,
already
God
told
giving it
you.
to
I
the
already got it from
people.
God. Yeah.
Right. So how can
No,
you
not to
be
the
morally in
people.
line
Not
with
to the
God
people.
without relying on human interpretation?
Wait, it's not to the people. I never said that it was given to the people. Where did you get that from? It's not given to
You
the
were
people.
talking
It's given to the church. And there's a specific church that I would say that it's given to. So it's not like, and there's specific interpretations that
Okay,
are
so do
outside
you
of the
think that the
scope of the
church is
debate.
infallible? Do you think the church is infallible? Do you think the clergy and the religious institutions that decide what God is
Yeah,
requiring, are they not infallible?
yeah. Yeah, that is the point of the church. But again, I told you, this is
Okay,
outside
so
of the
but
scope of
that's
the
no
debate.
different than the regular people who decide who we elect as president. I just don't understand like how you're interpreting the two different people who are just people. One is
Mhm.
fallible, one is not. I mean, we
Uh,
literally had
What?
cases where priests were raping kids. How do you defend
Raping.
that?
But I'm not defending that. I'm not talking about the. I'm not that. Okay.
But you said that's where you got
The
your moral authority from.
priest. Yes, the institution is uncorruptible. People can be corruptible. There's a difference between those two things, okay? I know you don't, but that's what I tell you. This is outside of the scope of the debate. This is what I'm talking to you when it comes to democracy. In let's say that there is the possibility that there can be bad actors, heretics in the church. That's fine. We know that that happens, okay? There's people who become bad actors in the church itself. Again, that is known. Now tell me, where does democracy get their morals from? Who is responsible? Where do I go to know if this is right or wrong? In democracy.
Well, I already said that we know who we can hold responsible as our leaders. Where we talk about morals, I'm not a religious person, but I know there are most of Congress is religious, so I would say that they can find their own morals throughout their experiences in life or the church or whatever religious institutions they go to. But I'm not getting the point that you're making between how those people are less corruptible if we've already admitted that whether you're a godly person or you look up to God, you can still be infallible, you can still make mistakes, you can be even immoral and still work in these institutions. So how is your moral
but
code higher than any other regular person?
there's no morality in your code. That's what I'm pointing to. It's not about me. It's not about Tukwokwe, okay? It doesn't reflect on me. What I'm trying to figure out is where is the moral axiom when it comes to democracy. It relies directly on the population, but the population can be immoral. So we don't even have an idea of where do they come from with these kind of moral axioms at all. But just to finish this, I have a really interesting question for you. Do you think, for example, democracies like China that is moving directly towards authoritarianism, or even has moved to authoritarianism at this point. What is it? Do you not? Is there a pattern that you can see through history when it comes to democracies that just move to tyranny?
Yeah, I'm confused though. China's never been a democracy though.
It, what do you mean? It has been a democracy. They vote in the people that go into the parliament, and they vote they are a representative republic in a sense. They do represent, and they do it through voting.
I think I think it was Steelborn or somebody mentioned Russia too. Like I don't know how this team is interpreting Russia or China as some type of democracy. We know that they have basically a one-party rule in those countries, and the people, if you
Yeah.
are against whatever Xi Jinping or Putin says, you're basically tossed out of Congress or whatever parliament that they have. So we know that it's not true that they are democracies. Come on.
Correct. They're moving towards authoritarianism, but they started as republics. You know, as the Weimar Republic did as well when they elected the H-man, for example. I cannot say his name to avoid
Wait, but
problem.
are you saying the People's Republic of China because they have republic in their name makes them a republic? That's like,
Was
come
H-man
on.
elected? Was H-man elected?
Wait, now you're talking about Germany? Wait, I'm talking about
Yeah, I'm
China.
just asking that. Yeah, the Xi Jinping was elected too, but I'm asking you through history, for example, H-man, was he elected?
Yeah, but I still don't understand how you're saying that somebody who was elected and then chose to become an authoritarian dictator and not pursue democratic reforms is like that's an argument against democracy. Like it just you're kind of all
Because
over the
there's
place
no
for me here.
guardrails, and whenever there is a
Yes, because
party
they
that
took
just
them
wants to
away
hold
for
more
he took them
power, they
away
will
though.
do it.
That's like the whole point here is like when you have people like Xi
Yeah.
Jinping
Okay.
and the H man who are taking away those democratic
Mhm.
institutions, that leads to a more corruptible power, authoritarianism,
Yeah.
dictatorship, whatever. That's not good. That's not what we want.
All right,
Okay.
gentlemen.
So
Perfect.
wouldn't you agree?
Let me.
Wouldn't you
Go ahead and
agree? Hold on,
tie
one
it
more
up
point
for
though
me.
is like
Yep, tie it up for me.
between what you're saying and what
Mhm.
I think A was saying, or even Steelborn, is like, okay, we want to have a standardized way for people to vote, like having testing. We want less corruptible institutions. Like these are things that we can incorporate into democracy now with the rule of law that we have the power to do now. It doesn't mean that democracy is the issue here. It's that the people
Okay.
who want to take that away from us and corruptible are the problem.
Perfect. Last question. Let's say that I am a very charismatic leader. I got into it. I get a bunch of people in power. We have three quarters of the Congress. Everybody is aligned with me, and I decide through the constitutional power that I'm gonna become the emperor of America. Is there any guardrail that said that I can't do it?
Yes, we have a court system. Supreme Court. Stop that from happening.
Do you realize
right.
that they enforce the laws, right? And I will be doing the laws through the Congress. But anyway, thank you so much,
Yep.
Horseradish.
Yeah, no worries. I let the clock start running up. Figured I'd give y'all up to 5 minutes. Y'all took that and still wanted more. So it's a great debate, and I appreciate y'all doing it. So, all right, last pair comes down to the captains. I'm pretty sure that they left something on the plate for you, gentlemen. 10 minutes is on the clock. Yeah, bring it home for us.
All right,
Wow.
okay. I got a couple of questions, real quick. Do you think I got 5 questions? Do you think we can get through them real quick, and then I'll give the rest of the time to you?
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's go. Sure.
Okay, so my first question is: would you agree that a person should understand a subject before making decisions about it that would affect other people?
I think it's ideal.
Okay, you think it's ideal. If 60 to 70% of Americans can't pass a basic civics test to demonstrate they even understand how our government works, why should we trust the electorate to make complex political decisions?
I think it's about correction. We have a system where you can get it wrong, and it perseveres until we can get it right.
Oh, well, is it always going to persevere until we get it right?
I don't think everything lasts forever. It's about longevity, and we've lasted a pretty long time, and we've tried it in multiple countries, and they've all lasted.
Hold on, we've lasted a pretty long time relative to most. Relative to
Democracy
like,
or America? I mean, democracies. Like democracies lasted a long time.
oh, really? What's the longest lasting democracy?
The longest lasting democracy? I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
You can look it up if you want. I'm cool with it.
Okay. Do we want to trust the AI answer? Yes or no?
That's fine with me.
Okay, well, it says 230 years.
And real quick, how long did the Byzantium Empire last, or the Roman Empire, or the Chinese Empire, or the Japanese Empire?
Wait, wasn't the Roman Empire like also developing democracy?
No, the Romans hated democracy. They thought it was a dumb idea.
Also, didn't the Chinese like empires like shatter and come back together? Shatter and come back together?
No, not necessarily. So there were some dynasties that lasted hundreds of years. It depend. There was usually what caused a Chinese empire to fail was invasion from another nation, and like they got taken over, and then the Chinese would rebel.
I mean, if your system cannot like prevent like rebelling and invasion, that's like
well,
failing,
that's
right?
any system is going to be subject to that.
I think you're talking about different like time periods though, and you're conflating them all into one in order to inflate numbers here. But
I'm just saying like I don't even think the Chinese Empire lasted for thousands of years necessarily, but like collectively over the course of Chinese history, they've had much more time as an empire.
We're not going to do collective here. We're not going to do collective
here. Okay, real quick, is the UK a democracy?
It's a form of democracy.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but democracy, the purpose of democracy is to serve the will of the people, right?
Not necessarily.
What is the democracy for?
Depends if you're talking about the system or the ideal. The ideal of a democracy is to be basically propagate, yes, enact the civic will of the majority, but also preserve the civic will of the minority. So if the people that are in the majority win, the people that are in the minority don't cease to exist, making a cohesive system that continues rather than falling apart and imploding on itself.
Do you think that democracies, if our system is supposed to be a democracy, right? But like a massive minority is all that's needed to win the elections. Is that really a democracy anymore, or is it still working?
I think you're starting to step away from a democracy. A democracy is not black or white. It's going to be a gradient thing. You can't just be like, this is exactly 100%.
What percentage of the vote do you need to win Parliament in the UK?
I don't know. I'm not from the UK.
13%.
Okay, that seems like they're stepping away from democracy. It would be ideal if they step more into democracy to avoid those pitfalls, huh?
I don't think so. Actually,
also, it's irrelevant on whether it works. There's still a country.
Does the UK seem like it's working right now?
It's still operating, even if it has problems. If a car needs its oil changed and needs air in its tire, it's still a fucking functioning car, ain't it?
Not for very long, but.
I mean, it's all about maintenance, right? Any system fails if you fail to maintain it, democracy included.
Okay.
You can say, yes, we need to maintain it better. Okay, that's not a failure of democracy. It's a failure of people not maintaining.
Okay, so if democracy, if the goal of democracy the ideal is to serve the will of the people.
I don't agree with that. So
you said the ideal was to serve the will of the people in both the majority and protect the minority at the same time.
I said, yes. Okay, there we go.
So if that's the case, why would current voters sacrifice their own benefits for people who can't vote against them?
Can you reword the question? I'm not understanding what you're asking.
Yeah, so like, do you agree that like boomers kind of fucked the nation?
To a certain degree, yes.
Like so from my perspective, boomers basically stole from us to pay for the shit they wanted, and threw the system into chaos. So the question is, why would like what's actually stopping people from voting in the interest of the next generation for their interests?
Well, we care about the next generation because they're our kin typically, and also you have to live into the people that carry over. So while you age in your population, you have to rely on the younger generation in order to carry the country. So if you fuck over the younger generation too much, guess what? You're fucked in your older age where you can't, work and produce as much. It's a cycle.
Okay, and then so my last question for you is: if the majority can be uninformed, emotional, tribalistic, and focused on short-term interest, why should I ever believe that the majority opinion is going to produce good governance?
I'm not talking about what you should believe. It's just whether it works or not. Something could work and be unideal to you or unappealing to you. The fact is that they're functioning.
Why do you think that if the majority of people who are voting based based on their emotions or tribalistic reasons, like many people who like you get on both sides, right? Where you get the right wingers that are like you never vote for a fucking Democrat, never vote for a Democrat, and then you get the the left wingers that are like vote blue no matter who, right? So that's the tribalistic part about it, and then a lot of people tend to vote based on emotions.
Wait, did tribalism not exist in what was feudalism? Are you going to say that wasn't tribalistic? I mean, tribes.
No,
was that democracy, really? I mean, I feel like, the word tribalism comes from a pre-democratic time. I mean, you're talking about concepts older than democracy, my friend.
The necessary entailment of democracy is it's going to form political political power blocks.
That's just a human nature, yeah? Before democracy that existed, yes?
Not to nowhere near the same extent.
Not to the same extent. So you just think
I would say actually nowhere near the same extent. And what I mean by that is under monarchies there wasn't political tribes. There was one ruler. So that's just an example of how that was avoided under
monarchies. Who do you think beheaded people in France? Do you think there was not coalitions?
France was a revolution. Sometimes monarchies were conquered by other monarchies.
Yeah, what are revolutions made out of?
Revolutions tend to be that tends to be revolt by the
people. Yep, there we go. So
I didn't say that monarchy. I didn't say monarchies are entirely immune to it, but I'm saying it's far less common in monarchies. But then, so why are we to assume? Why are we to assume? So the core pillar of democracy. The core pillar of democracy is that basically it's the ideal is to serve the will of the people in both the majority and the minority. So the question that I have for you is, why are we to assume that majority opinion for what people vote on can produce good governance? And then my follow-up to this is, if you love democracy so much and you think democracy is so great, then why don't you think that gay marriage should be overturned, considering the fact that was actually shut down by popular vote in almost every state that they tried, or a lot of states that they tried it, including California, couldn't even get gay marriage passed by popular vote and instead had to go through the Supreme Court.
Would you say that gay people are a minority?
Sure.
Yeah, so part of my ideal of democracy, as I stated, was carrying out the civic will of the majority while preserving the civic will of the minority.
It wasn't preserving; it was giving them a right that they didn't have. It was not preserving anything.
Also, isn't gay marriage more in favor right now than out of favor? So it seems like democracy is at the same level where we're at right now.
Well, no, but it wasn't when it was put through. It wasn't a democratic decision. It was pushed through by the courts. So I don't understand.
Okay, again, you're talking about a pure democracy. It's a sliding scale. Do you think it has to always be a perfect democracy, or is it an ideal that you can fall on a spectrum of?
I don't really see the distinction between the two. Both of them are still just going to be power blocks.
What do you mean you don't see the distinction? There's a difference. If you're talking about an absolute democracy, that means anything that is non-democratic at all removes it from being a democracy. But if it's a sliding scale, democracy can be multiple shades.
Well, what was democratic about the Obergefell decision?
I don't know what that is. So
that was the gay marriage law. Okay. That was passed by the Supreme Court. What was democratic about that?
I don't know because I don't know it. You're asking me to speak to things I don't know of.
So what is democracy? Well, it's kind of hard to say. Democracy is on a spectrum, right? You can be more democratic and less democratic, but democracy works even though I can't actually pin down and tell you what it is.
I did pin down and tell you what it is. Do you need me to say it again, or I mean,
yeah, let's hear it again.
Yeah, democracy is a form of government, and this for the system is a form of government in which citizens have the right to participate either directly or indirectly in governance, while their rights and freedoms are protected by rule of law and accountable systems. And then
Do you think
the
most people are
ideal of
stupid
them,
or smart?
I think they're smart in some things and stupid in other things.
Do you think most people actually are making
See,
informed
that's
votes?
again a spectrum. Wait, do you think that
Okay,
someone
I
is
just, I,
either
okay, I
just
just
wait,
refined the
going
question.
back to spectrums,
I
you
refined the
can't
question. real quick. Hold
you
on.
were
Do you think
having
most
you're
people?
having problem with spectrums. I'm trying to like help educate here. Do you think people are just naturally stupid or not stupid, or do you think there's a spectrum of how ignorant a person can be?
I think when it comes to politics, most people are really stupid.
So, and there's no spectrum here. So there's no that you're just either stupid or not. There's not a difference of how ignorant a person could be.
Well, no, there is a difference. But
Oh,
when
so you do understand the concept. Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, I did. But when
All of
only
a sudden
36,
we know.
well, when only
Fucking hell.
36% of the population can actually pass a basic civics test, yeah, I don't think most people are pretty politically informed. So
Yeah,
why
that
should we,
sounds like
why
a
should we
flaw.
actually
Thank
want
you for
them?
pointing out. Let's
Yeah, so
change
why
it.
should
Let's
we have
change
all
it.
these
Let's
people who are
use the
politically
democracy to
uninformed
change it.
voting? Why would we use democracy
Because
to
it
change that? We need
continues.
authoritarianism, baby, and just say, you know what? These people have no idea what the fuck they're voting on. Enough of that shit.
And how do you know who's going to
No more
be
voting
the
for you.
authoritarian? What if the authoritarian is a Lenin type and he kills you and me? Now we don't even get a chance. With democracy, you and I are still living. We
Well, no,
get
no,
a
no.
chance.
Lenin was a
That's the
totalitarian, not an authoritarian. There's a difference.
You want to pick anybody? You want to pick anybody from history? I mean, he's not democratic, that's for sure. Neither was Mao. I mean, if I'm just picking non-democratic people. Like, how do you know that the person that you pick and put in power is going to be your ideal? What is the chances of that?
No idea. Depends. It depends on how
No,
they
that
how they come to
exactly.
be.
It's a weakness in the system. I'm talking at least with democracy. You can go out. You could talk to me. You could talk to other people. You could change minds.
Well, how about we do this, right? If you want, if
Okay.
you know, we can compromise a little here, right? So what we'll do is we're going to massively reduce suffrage, right? And we're going to make it so that there's a couple of requirements. One, you have to pass the basic civics test. You have to put more into the system than you get out of it. And then we'll let those select people, they get to decide who the monarch is, or the authoritarian, or whatever it is. They get to decide that, and then from then on, it's now hereditary monarchy.
So you want to use democracy to get to?
That's not democracy. That's a massive that's a tiny minority who gets to decide the power, not a majority. Not even close.
Okay, so how are you going to know that that's the right person? If you think that like right now people are stupid,
How do I
and
know
ignorant,
this?
how are we going to pick? How are we going to pick the right people in order to put them in power?
I just gave you the criteria for who's actually allowed to make.
You gave me, but how does that?
Decision.
Okay, and how do we know that that's not going to create a system that is going to fail in on itself?
Well, all systems have the possibility of failing in on themselves.
So you're getting rid of.
The question is whether or not they actually have long-term goals and can achieve those. That's one of the massive flaws of democracy. Is every 4 years it's always working on new elections. That's why, like, you know, like the number one contributor to our national debt is what's the term? It's benefit spending, right?
Servicing the debt, or that too. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's our benefit spending, right? And we spend way too much on, like, you know, Social Security, disability, all that kind of stuff. We put way too much money out of that. So hold on, so real quick,
we can vote that out.
Why would people ever vote out their money?
Because it's not conducive to
it doesn't
their
serve their interest to vote out their money from their view.
What do you mean? If people see that they're paying into Social Security and it's not being paid out too late and not enough amount, and they know that they could put it into the stock market or something, yield more money, they can vote to get rid of Social Security and replace it with other systems, and or just, you know, go into private.
They're never going to vote to get rid of Social Security, and here's why they're never going to vote to get rid of Social Security. My grandma's on Social Security. My grandma's on Social Security. I can't take that away from her.
Can you prove that it's never going to happen?
What about my disabled cousin who has autism and he can't function? Why should I? We can't take away his Social Security. What about our disabled vets? We can't take away their disability and their Social Security.
Can you prove we're not going to do it? I'm just still waiting for the proof. You're saying that like they're never going to do it, but it seems like we live in a system.
So
of
basically,
change
historical examples of people continuing to vote in electors who promise to steal more out of the treasury to give to them in order for their votes. That's the standard that I'm appealing to, the historical standard here. Never once as a politician who ran on, I'm going to cut Social Security spending.
Why
Has
can a
everyone-
ruler not do the same thing? Why can't a ruler go up and be like, hey, listen, in order for you not to like peasants rise up against me, I'm going to create this thing called Social Security, and you guys are going to be taken care of. How
Why
can you not
could they
guarantee
do
that?
it? Well, hold on. I can't guarantee that's never gonna happen. But
Dude,
that's but
like
I don't
in
have to provide
feudalism,
all
they
the
gave
systems here.
fiefs. They gave fiefs, bro, to people in order to like, you know, promote. Like this is
You mean like a governor? Who
you
at
think
any point
governors
can
give
call
fiefs?
governors are in charge of a specific area. They're in charge of the monopoly on force on a geopolitical area, and they can actually call up the National Guard at any point in their state.
Can you vote out a governor?
Sure.
So they're held accountable. So you can
Could-
have a continuous system that doesn't implode on
could you
itself.
could you overthrow your fiefdom lord?
You can, but it's going to be violent and it's going to cause a loss and it's going to drain the resources on the system and negatively affect you.
No, yeah, but people who have a long-term position of I'm going to be ruling over this for long term, and I'm probably going to pass this down to like my child or something like that. They have actually a built-in interest to make the system better and to preserve the system, to try and keep the people happy, to serve those people, because their children are the ones who's going to inherit that system. They have
Is
much
that what
more
North
of an
Korea is
inherent
doing?
interest.
He has a daughter. How's North Korea doing right now?
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't. I don't think his daughter is going to be able to take the role. I think he's gonna. I don't know how that works there, but
Oh, well, it seems like it goes against your point then. Oh, damn.
All
I
right.
said they're more likely. They have a more invested interest in it.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in there. We have definitely gone to the end of the clock here. Great debate, everybody. This has been amazing. We've still got our closings ahead of us. I just want to let the chatters know. Remember, whenever they're done with their closings, I'm going to put a link in the chat for everybody to click on to vote for which team you think made the most persuasive and compelling case tonight. That said, also, if you guys have questions while you're voting, throw them into the tip jar. We'll get to those questions during that closing time, or during the voting time. So we're going to go back through in the same order that everybody went through. That means that you are actually going to go first, Steelborn. 3 minutes is now going on the clock for you. This is your uninterrupted closing. Put a cherry on top, sir.
Yeah, so I don't think that any of these people actually demonstrated why democracy works to do anything other than to just rob the treasury from the electorate. And it's just basically to give stupid people like a bunch of power. It makes no sense. It's actually like the worst political system that I can think of. Ultimately, and here's why I say that. So everybody's like, afraid of authoritarianism, authoritarians, right? They're gonna stop, they're gonna trample my rights and the authoritarians. Here's what's interesting about authoritarians. The rules are strictly enforced, but you know the rules, and they stay consistent. That's usually the way it works with authoritarians. I don't even have to provide an alternate governance system here just to demonstrate that democracy doesn't work, and all it is it's basically just the uninformed electorate being promised bribes by the politicians in order to steal from the next generation, which is what it's done. America, as far as like this is my generation is the first generation to actually have it worse than their parents by the time they came to adulthood, right? This is the result of what we get when we have 100 years of democracy, of letting everybody vote. It's a terrible system. Most people, like I already read you guys the stats, but I'll do it again real quick just for poops and chuckles here. A poll of 41,000 Americans demonstrated that less than 36% could actually pass a multiple choice test where the questions were taken from the U.S. citizenship test. You need to get a 60% to pass the U.S. civics test. Less than a quarter of our country, or just over a quarter of our country, can actually pass a civics test. A large percentage of Americans don't even know that there's 3 branches of government, nor can they name them. This is a terrible system to have. It demonstrates it's full of flaws, right? The uninformed electorate. You wouldn't trust this. You wouldn't use democracy in almost any other system of your life, right? If you need a heart surgery, you're not going to let, you're not going to let a bunch of people decide who gets to do the heart surgery. No. You're going to go and you're going to find the best surgeon that you can afford, and you're going to have him do it. Like, that's just the way that this works. Like, when the important stuff, you don't just leave it up to that. Generals for militaries are not elected via, mass democracy. They're appointed by people who know how to appoint generals. This is how it works. This is how our military works. You don't use democracy in the workplace. You don't decide who the supervisor is by a democratic vote. The supervisor is picked usually by the owner, because the supervisor has demonstrated that they have the competence and the skill to actually run this company. You would use this system nowhere else. It makes absolutely no sense to decide to use this system to decide who gets the monopoly on force in a geopolitical area. Makes absolutely no sense. And with that, I'll see the rest of my time.
All right. Cheers.
Also, real quick, you said you'd post that link in the chat.
For the votes, yes, absolutely. I'll send it to you directly. Everybody who's streaming
my
on
chat's just
YouTube.
asking for it.
Yeah. I'll send it to everybody who's on YouTube directly. So, all right. So now, Circa, you are up, sir. 3 minutes is going on the clock for you. 3 minutes to close. Go ahead and start it up when you're ready.
Ah, okay. Well, I just want to start by saying I think they proved that democracy can, and I'm not going to not agree to that. They proved that voters can be wrong. This is true. Prove that majorities can rationalize evil. This is also true. They prove that public opinion does not create a moral truth. That is also true. They prove that law is morally loaded. They prove that society has standards and authority and formation. And all of that is true. Now, before I go any further, I want to address the doctor. A doctor has a specific applicable set of skills that we can measure. Don't touch the kidney. You need to work on the liver. I want to posit the question of where there is a applicable skill set that we can measure when you vote on a bill that might increase subsidies for farm or for some farm product. Is there a simple, like a pilot, turn the rudder, go up 5,000 altitude, this button does that? It's a naive and child way to think about the world. Maybe that's why we still think rulers are the best answer, because he still did not prove that rulers are less fallible than voters. They aren't. In fact, he wants a form of government that annihilates the will of others because he thinks he has a privileged position or knowledge to create that very institution, or he knows who to pick. To me, that's crazy. I don't really know why I would trust him for that. I don't know why I would trust any single human to try and encapsulate all of that anyway. It's unrealistic. It's a video game. He doesn't prove that experts are immune from capture. He didn't prove that courts own civic meaning. He didn't prove anything. Or that emergency commanders will return power when crisis becomes useful. He didn't prove that moral authority interprets itself for civil law. He didn't prove which human institution gets to enforce that authority. He just kind of hand waved and said that he doesn't need to do anything here. Just nullified government, I guess. He did not prove, most importantly, that the loser can return. He's talked a lot about future generations, but at the same time, like I just mentioned, is advocating for a form of government that annihilates the wills of people specifically, and they are unable to return in that environment. So democracy does not need to deny these things. It receives them without letting any of them become one final owner. And a democracy is not only a system where people can win, most importantly, all of them can win, but it is uniquely the only system where political defeat does not become a political annihilation. And I wish my opponent would realize that. I'll end it there.
All right. Emmett, 3 minutes is now going on the clock for you, sir. 3 minutes to close. Start up when you're ready.
Yes, of course, I will answer the question directed by Zirkar. It's very simple if you actually think about it. There's something called the budget. And when you are doing, a spending, it goes into a spreadsheet. And if you are spending more on one side and, that you are getting, that will be a measurable thing. And the fact that we have had, at this point, hundreds and hundreds of representatives that keep on voted for spending more that we get is directly correlated to the incapacity of democracy to provide a fundamental understanding of economics, for example. For the other idea is like, oh well, where exactly, the opponents can't have a voice even if they lose. Yeah, well, I mentioned historical leaders that were elected into power. H-Man is the greatest example. Can you please tell me how many times the people in the camps that cannot be named voted after they were sent to those camps, and how exactly do they feel when it came to that? The problem that I see when in democracy is that it tends towards tyranny. Okay, the thing that I see is that it creates tribalism, as was stated by Stillborn. And the more apart that we fall into each other, the more we're gonna go into one of those camps having the power and staying in power, because that is what they are looking for. That is exactly the thing that they want. And the more extreme that they go, because they will move towards extremes, as we have seen in the political environment that we're going for right now. What are we talking about right now? The left in the United States wants to park the courts. That's the idea that they have in right now. We're just going to add 4 more judges. That will show the Republicans. So we're moving towards extremes, and the more we move towards extremes, the closer we are to actually falling into one of these tyranny, into a tyranny in and of itself. So this is what I was talking about, the specific moral authority. The problem with democracy, one of the biggest problems, is that there is no moral authority. Okay? There can be the case that they say idealism, but I can be completely agnostic towards their idealism. I just want to use the system. I'm a great libertarian. I just want to maximize my profits. And I see that my biggest profit is to become the dictator and have all of the power. And if that is the case, they cannot tell me why I'm wrong. They can say things like, well, I feel something, maybe, but they wouldn't be able to tell me what exactly is it that I am wrong by doing that. So those are the answers, Sirkar. Okay, the budget is a measurable thing, and for what I've seen when it comes to the representatives that we have right now, none of them want to stop spending. Thank you so much, Horse Riders.
Yes, sir. All right. Okay, you're up. 3 minutes is on the clock. Go ahead and start it up when you're ready.
All right. So I'm sorry, chat. I thought this was going to be a conversation about if democracy works, not them saying, no, democracy only works because it has such amazing resources, or no, it works, but not the way I want it to work. And also, did I catch that correctly, or but did Stillborn literally ask for a link to democratically vote? Huh. That's pretty interesting. Anyway, let's look at the arguments. Today we heard direct democracy is flawed, so we need something like a republic. Well, a republic is a democracy, as we pointed out, so we changed it up a bit. Direct democracy allows those who are uninformed to vote. So let's trust a monarchy who is notoriously known for being reliable and knowledgeable. Not educate the people, but go to a monarchy. Let's see. They look at God is the only system that works, but I mean, which God? Whose God? Yours? Mine? Whose God? How do we know it's the right God? We heard that democracies are good because of their resource, wealth, and power, as I mentioned before. It's pretty interesting that just democracies just happen to have all of that. No correlation, by the way, boys. Just it's a little coinky dink. They have not answered how democracies don't work. How, if they're a bad system, why all these other systems develop around it? Why countries overwhelmingly move into more democratic practices rather than majorly running away from democratic institutions? They can point out problems in democracy effectively. I mean, we all can. But as I pointed out earlier, a car doesn't stop working because it needs air in the tires, oil topped off, or a nice car wash. All right, you need maintenance, but that's all systems, not unique to democracy. They can point to ideas they think would work better. Okay, fine. We all don't have to agree it's the best thing. Okay, I'm not even sure if it's the best, but they haven't provided any evidence that it's not working now. Democracy doesn't mean that you will get it right on the first try. It means you'll be able to last and try things until they work, unlike other systems that live or die by a single point of failure. Democracies have demonstrated their ability to last. The world's oldest continuous operating governments at this moment are democracies. Meanwhile, many authoritarian systems, from fascist regimes to communist dictatorships, have either collapsed outright or have been forced to liberalize and accept democratic tendencies. History shows that concentrated political power may produce rapid decisions, but it rarely produces durable ones. Democracy, on the other hand, has expanded alongside humanity in our greatest achievements. 2 centuries ago, basically no one lived in a democracy. Today, billions do. During that same time, global life expectancy more than doubled, extreme poverty drastically fell, literacy became widespread, and war became less common. Democracy can't claim perfection, but it is clear as day that the system has and continues to work. So democracy doesn't just work. She's a hardworking worker. She's a hardworking mother who does a 9 to 5. And I'll end my time there.
All right, cheers. All right, so Abe, 3 minutes is going on the clock for your closing, sir. Again, uninterrupted time for you to talk. Go ahead and start the clock when you start to talk. After you unmute. That's 3. You're caught up to me.
Damn it, Jim. All right. So the majority of voters possess levels of political, economic, and historical knowledge, and vote largely on emotion, identity, and short-term interests. Therefore, giving the minority, let me start that over. Therefore, giving the majority final authority over complex systems is irrational and dangerous. Democratic politicians must win frequent elections by offering immediate benefits to voters while the costs are delayed or hidden. Therefore, democracy structurally favors short-term and fiscal and moral irresponsibility. Citizens are not equal in knowledge, wisdom, and foresight or responsibility. Therefore, giving them equal political power is a category error that undermines good governance. Modern democracies are following the same pattern: rising debt, polarization, declining trust, institutional capture. Therefore, the failure is inherent to democracy itself, not merely poor implementation. Democracy is not just flawed, it may be a flawed concept, because its core mechanism, equal numerical rule by the uninformed and self-interested, contradicts the requirements of sound governance, competence, foresight, and truth tracking. It cannot be easily repaired through reforms or better education. Better systems must weigh voices by proven judgment and long-term stakes rather than a raw head count. Partially, this is an issue with human nature itself. So long as people have great ambition and are willing to dance in corruption in order to gain power, we will continue to see democracies tilt and push towards totalitarian rule infinitum. So, and that's it.
All right. And then, last but not least, bringing it home for us, Castle. 3 minutes is on the clock, sir. Let's hear it.
All right. So basically, our opponent's arguments are that people are stupid and our government wastes money, and we want more fiscal conservatism and a smarter electorate. Which doesn't mean democracy doesn't work. It just means that they don't like how it works. Under Reagan, they would like it. Under Obama, they would hate it. It's not about moral authority either. We prove that the church is no more infallible than you or I, and God has created the people who interpret His word into what they believe is right. Those same people who make up a majority of Congress today, but I guess they aren't doing a good job at that interpretation. Well, do we all democratically decide which doctor we want to operate on us? No, Patrick, because a doctor's office isn't government. An airplane cockpit isn't government either. The arguments we've heard today have been fun to debate on, but they're not serious. The opposition's alternative do not eliminate human fallibility. It just concentrates it. It takes the mistakes of millions of citizens, which can be debated and corrected, and replaces them with the mistakes of a few rulers whose decisions are harder to challenge. That is why democracy works. It keeps power answerable, failure contestable, and losers civic. When democracies collapse, it's often not because accountability, opposition, and peaceful transfer were too strong. It's because bad actors weaken those very principles. They attack elections, undermine courts, corrupt institutions, silence critics, demonize opponents, and try to permanently possess the civic field. That is not democracy functioning. That is democracy being subverted. We should not blame the locked door because someone tries to break it down. We should try to strengthen the lock. Democracy does not promise that the wisest person will always win either. It promises that no ruler, monarch, church, party, or majority can rightfully claim permanent ownership of society. And that's it.
All right. All right. There you go. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We nailed that right on the 2-hour mark. Couldn't have scheduled that better myself. As I said before, I'm dropping the link to the chat right now. I'm also going to go ahead and send it over to Abe and Steelborn and Emmett. Y'all are all three live on YouTube right now, correct? So if you want to drop this link into your chat so that your viewers can also weigh in. Steelborn, boom, there you go. So also, as I mentioned earlier, chatters, if you want to throw a couple bucks into the jar, if you have any questions or comments, again, this is basically Twitch's version of super chats, because, you know, that's where we grew up is Twitch. So we did actually get one that just, it's not a question, but it is just a hater. Hoping that everyone who is against democracy stops voting to live your values. But I do believe that Abe actually engaged with that during the debate. So that said, everybody please click that link. Give us a vote if you've got one. I took a lot of notes tonight. I'm going to just kind of ask a couple of questions if that is okay with y'all, and I'll try again just to give the people some time to vote since they don't seem to have any questions for you. And also, for those of you who don't know, after the debates, we stop with the clock. Well, we put a different kind of clock on. We have more of an open forum conversation where all of us can kind of discuss. We don't do like we do on the 1v1 nights, because on the 3v3 nights, everybody here has already debated each other. So it's not really necessary for each of them to get into the ring with somebody about something that they didn't get to speak on. Instead, it's an opportunity for all of you guys. If you want to come in, I'll put 5 minutes on the clock for y'all. Chatters can come in and hang out for a couple minutes, talk to the debaters, ask any questions or do any pushback that you want. If you do have an interest in doing that, just jump into any Discord channel that you can see. I will have somebody in there to help vet and make sure that you don't just pull your dick out on camera as soon as you come in the room. You do that with them in privacy. But yeah, we'll bring you in here after we're done voting and let you get your words in as well. So, all right. So Steelborn, I'm gonna start with you real quick. Well, and actually, a lot of these there were a lot of commonalities in the debates. Y'all circled around similar points and similar angles of argument. The biggest one was the undereducation. I liked your three prime. Well, I guess you actually had four. I felt like you said three, but you had four. The democratic votes lead to tribalism, the undereducation of voters, the short-term gain over long-term benefit, and basically that the present exploits the future, which is sort of the same as the last one. The one I want to focus on, though, is the undereducation of voters. You talked about the low number of people who can pass the civics or a basic civics question. I think it was also you who brought up the citizenship test. Do you, and I feel like one of the debaters here said something about this, but I would like to hear you directly. Do you think that democracy would be benefited by increasing the education level of the voters? Like if you have everybody who votes, whether it's a landowner or they have to pass a civics test, they're still qualifying for the democracy in that situation. Democracy would then benefit, right?
Well, I think that there's a distinction between a republic and a democracy that wasn't really talked about that much in this debate, but I think you can have forms of republics that they tend to last a little longer than democracies, which, by the way, Kay was totally wrong about the fact that the longest lasting political systems were democracies. Not even close. But like, I've never actually heard anybody make a compelling argument for universal suffrage, which is basically what a democracy is.
Okay. All right. Cheers.
So,
yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Again, you don't think that the benefit would still be there? That's all I needed to hear. I'm going to shoot over to you real quick, Kay. So something that you said that I thought was really interesting was Well, a bunch of things actually. The idea that if God can give morality to the individuals, then God would therefore be able to influence the morality of the individuals in the democracy. But the thing that I wanted to actually ask you questions about, you touched on something, but you didn't pull the trigger. Do you believe that revolution is inherently a democratic act?
Apparently, no.
Okay. So how pull that apart a little bit for me then? Why or why not?
Minority groups have done successful coups and have seized power.
I
It's
see.
not always a majority.
Okay, so it's not about the majority of the people. And in fact, in the American Revolution, it was a very small number of people who supported the revolution, right?
I don't know the exact number.
I believe it
of,
was
like, when
approximately
like,
30 to 35% of the population supported the revolution. If I'm not mistaken,
If
somebody can
that's
fact
the
check
case,
that.
then it
But
would
yeah,
have been it would have been a minority.
okay. All right. You brought up revolution in relation to democracy. How was it you were referring to? What was your point in bringing up the revolution then?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Like, what was the point you were
Like,
making about
I-
revolution?
well, I don't think I was making a point of revolution in terms of democracy, as in revolutions are democratic. I think the point that you're referring to is when I said that democracies can continue without the need of revolution, like to overthrow. Like he was saying that he mentioned that in a monarchy, he asked me, can't a revolution overthrow like a bad monarchy? And I said, yes, it could. And then I said, but we don't need violent revolution in a democracy to have change of power.
All right. All right, cool. Thank you, sir. Emmett, you're up. Quick question for you. So first of all, I want to say that you it was really interesting the way that you were controlling the cross examination. I thought that was really well executed. Just as a side note. So
Thank you.
yeah, word. So you referred to China as a democracy, and in my own real quick searching, I it was really difficult to find anything that referred to China as democratic. They were a republic for a short time, but it was a republic that was taken over by communism. And I don't know that communism is necessarily a democracy inherently because they follow either a but before that they were historically imperial. So my question to you, sir, is how do you had K, I believe it was, define democracy? Can you tell me how you define democracy? Like what
I thought
makes
they were gonna
China
go
a democracy? Yeah.
Well, I thought they were gonna go with a higher extent of what democracy is. They were gonna include, for example, the United States. If you're gonna say that a representative republic is a democracy, I would put China as is as well. They do have um, they, I believe it was in 2000, maybe 11, 12. I'm not entirely sure which one of those. They just made Xi Jinping as president elect for life, which means they actually had elections for the president before that, and they do have provincial level, quasi provincial level, prefectural level, country level, and township level uh, elections for the people that go into the Congress of China. That doesn't mean that it's going to be open for everybody. I don't think it's open for everybody. People like the yogurts, the people like the Chenks yogurts of over there. I don't think they have any ability to vote. It's mostly to the people at the top. But if you're gonna put the United States as one, why wouldn't you put why wouldn't you put China as one? It's just that they obviously are in levels of capacity. So I would say that they're a democracy, that they're in a higher stage when it comes to them going towards tyranny, but they are still in the essence a democracy. There's still the ideas of voting. There's still they're still going to they got to power um, through this system. That's the idea. That's the point.
All right. Cheers. Thank you, sir. Castle. First of all, always a pleasure. Always great to watch. I thought it was actually cool the way that you called out Abe about the whole you're just guessing about the voter knowledge. I thought that was really cool for you the way you kind of popped that one. So Couple things. Another thing was that we elect people to reflect our personal morals, right? So again, we imbue the morals of ourselves into our elected officials theoretically. But you talked about Bill Clinton. And when pressed, you said that even though you acknowledged that even though he was impeached for what he did, which we elected him, and if he reflects our morals, I mean, there's a whole conversation there. But you said that the only real consequences that he faced was losing credibility. I'm not really sure how that affected him after he left office. If the impeachment didn't actually affect him during office. And how did he actually have what negative impact? Oh, Castle, I've lost you. Are you still there, buddy?
No, I'm here. I just had to.
Oh, yep. No, okay. No, it's fine.
Um,
I looked up. No worries. I just looked up and I didn't see your face, so it threw me off for a second.
Like, whatever, horse.
Yeah, no, like deep. Peace out. So again, how did Bill Clinton lose credibility over the impeachment?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I think when we were talking about that particular case, it was for his, sexual improprieties with an intern. I don't think it was anything that was more than just a scandal that was going to affect our very way of life or democracy. And so a lot of people even dispute if he should have been impeached for this in the first case. So I think that there are certain things that we hold our leaders accountable for. And I think also similar to crimes, we don't charge somebody who was convicted of manslaughter to go to jail for the rest of their life the same way we do for somebody who is murdered in the first degree. And so I think there are levels and there's a spectrum here as well to how we decide through the justice system, through our own Congress, how we hold people accountable. I think in this case, we held him accountable by impeaching him through the House. Obviously, the Senate did not believe he deserved to be removed for that. And I think after the case and after that fact, he kind of was able to revive his image as well. And people thought less of him at the time when this happened. But then after a certain amount of time, we've come to realize that, hey, I think, certain improprieties aren't necessarily meaning that you're harming our democracy or you're harming the country. Obviously, it speaks to you as a person for how scummy you are. And so I think over time we've seen that those things matter less and less to people, and more matters more to people these days is, is the economy doing well? Is our country being protected? Am I safe? Do I feel safe? Real tangible things that we feel every day that people have decided are still kind of the bedrock of our democracy. And so I think that's how you can kind of view that case. I think there are other people who have been impeached and removed for much worse, actual white collar crimes, stealing money or taking money, money laundering, a lot of those things that people do in Congress, insider trading, that's happened and they've been removed from Congress. So I think we are not perfect, like I mentioned, but we do kind of decide on what we believe is serious and is impeachable and removable from office, and what we believe is condemnable or censurable through Congress. That doesn't necessarily mean you are being removed. But I think those are accountability, that counts for accountability in both ways. Just one may be lesser, one may be more.
All right, cheers. So again, I just want to circle it back. You said that we elect people to reflect our morals. So Clinton doing that and getting impeached for it would arguably happen because he was no longer reflecting the morals we thought he represented. Is that a fair justification for the impeachment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of sums it up nicely. I mean, Clinton, again, his image was harmed by it at the time, and then over time, people thought it was less of an issue. So I guess you could say that the consequences were more short term rather than long term. But yeah, he was held in civil contempt for technically misleading in his testimony. So you could argue that part too. But yeah.
All right, cheers. Thank you for the answer, sir. All right, Mr. Dinkus. First of all, I'm super glad to have you here, man. I hope you come back. Absolutely enjoyed the hell out of it. You are really good on your feet, for what it's worth. And I thought that it was really cool the way that you caught Kay on whenever he was making the reference about the steel and all of that, the appointed position of leadership as opposed to the democratically elected. There were a couple of things that traps that you snapped closed that were really impressive. And you also talked about the fact that it rewards charisma over competence. I thought that was really cool. So my question to you was, you were talking about the resources and the duration, the idea that rather than necessarily being successful because they're democratic, that these nations that Kay was talking about, the top 25 nations or whatever, that are also democratic and are also the highest GDP, highest medical quality or medical care quality, et cetera, et cetera. All of these criteria that he outlined. And you pushed back saying that it was because of the duration of their republic or their nation and the resources available to them. However, I think that there was a question about this. And this is going to come back to a question similar to what I was asking Emmett. The USSR, aka now Russia, was never really democratic. It is not currently really democratic. And I don't know how anybody, I would like to hear you explain how modern day Russia is an actual functional democracy. And also, they have just as much resources as the US. Why are they not as successful as the US if duration, tenure, and or resources were the driving factor?
Well, the reason why they're not as
Oh, no,
successful
this is
is
Dinkus.
not
This is
because
Abe.
of the
This is Abe, Emmett. I was referring to what I asked
sorry.
you. No, you're good, buddy. Abe, questions
Okay.
for you, bud.
My bad.
So partially, I wouldn't make the claim that they were a democracy, but my claim is partially in reference to the fact that because democracies are willing to outspend what they actually bring in, which seems to be consistent with democracies, they push the limits of like technological advancement, all these things. They're pumping all this money that doesn't exist into a system, which then tends towards collapse. Yes, Russia is got all the same resources that the U.S. has, but what we see is in the way that they've governed, or over time, they've been pressed by all sides to not expand, to not do the things that they would deem necessary to build what they want. I think that partially it has to do with all of these places that are democracies have had democracy functioning to drive basically overspending and extreme utilization of all resources to push themselves forward, and have received less pushback from the nations around them. Like the US doesn't get a whole bunch of pushback the way that, say, a nation like Russia does, regardless of the right or wrong aspects of how they have existed as a nation. I think that what we see is the ones that are doing well are either propped up and helped by other democracies that are also overspending, and have had less pushback from all the nations near or around them. And so I think that that's at least one thing to take into account when we say, oh, these are the countries that are doing the best. Well, how much have they had to fight against the nations around them in order to become the strength they are, and how much support did they gain from outside systems in order to become those things? And again, like I said, all of these nations that are democracies generally outspend what they are actually generating as wealth. So they're driving themselves forward on basically imagination and fiat until they're going to either have to expand or collapse, one or the other.
All right. Very cool. Thank you very much, sir. And last but not least, Circa. So, Circa, a couple things. First of all, absolutely great job as well. You lost me a little bit with the syllogism being sound and valid thing. I wasn't really sure like how that landed. I did like the fact that you called out that everybody knows about something. So, and I also, can a stupid person be the best leader, right? So I want to actually push back on that. Do you think that a person who is Actually, let me start out by, what benefit do you think? God damn it. No, we're going to go a different direction. Democracy always fails. I'm going to ask you about that instead. So you push back against the idea that democracy always fails. It was brought up the longevity of our democracy, that the United States' democracy is actually the longest successful democratic republic,
K.
or...
That was K.
Well, it was Steelborn who mentioned it. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're right though. And you pushed back on it whenever it was in your cross. The fact that democracies always fail. Steelborn mentioned the fact that democracies always fail. I will just ask you then, can you explain to me why throughout history, all of the democratic republics and democracies didn't last as long as the other alternative options? So we had all of these other longer lasting republics that were not democratic, but our current democratic republic is the only one that has lasted this long. Why do you think that is?
How much are you collapsing a bunch of different time frames?
Yes.
Steelborn brought up a
Throughout
bunch-
all of history.
Steel-
Throughout all of
Steelborn
history,
brought up-
yes.
Steelborn brought up a bunch of different eras and then collapsed
Yes.
them all into one by saying that the Romans never had democracy, and obviously they had a republic.
They had a
for
democratic
few
republic. Yep, a representative republic.
at some point, but that is still progressing towards a democratic ideal.
Okay.
I didn't even discuss the Roman Empire with you.
And
That
then
was
they-
the Chinese Empire.
Yeah, no, you were talking about
discussed the
Chinese
Romans
Empire.
with
No. He's
You
right.
said
It was
Romans
K.
too.
It was K. No, that was Emmett and Abe. Regardless, that's irrelevant. I'm
Yeah.
asking you right now. So again, my question to you is, why do non-democratic republics or non-democratic nations seem to last longer than democratic ones?
I just don't think that's true. There's different forms of democracies, there's different forms of democratic ideals, and then there's different forms of feudalism and monarchies. And I don't really think the question is whether or not, an unjust regime has been around a long time. But we say North Korea has been around for quite a while now. I mean, if it reaches 200 years, is that an argument for the positivity of North Korea?
Or the efficacy?
It might be for a few people.
Okay.
But it is extinguishing a lot of people at the same time. So I don't know. Depends.
Sure. And again, we're looking for efficacy. We were looking for sustainability and functionality. So, but yeah,
Efficacy would include the majority of the civic will as a whole. I mean, not just some civic will seems to be doing good if we exterminate or enslave a certain amount of other civic will.
but that happens
my
in
personal
democracies as well, right?
It can,
Yeah.
but I think it's pretty clear that democratic ideals evidently do not annihilate the will of others. In fact, it is in the democratic ideal itself, is the preservation of the loser. That is not something that other forms of government can claim.
All right, cheers. All right, thank you all for your answers there. Again, that was just me doing a little bit of light pushback since the damn audience isn't asking you guys any questions. I'm gonna chalk that up to they feel that you guys asked all of the relevant questions and you left nothing else on the bone. So with that, I'm going to drop the link one last time and I'm going to talk for just a split second. Please click that link. Please get your votes in. We are going to give it less than a minute before we look at the votes, and then we're going to stick a fork in it. I want to say to all of you guys, thank you very much. This is a really, really interesting prompt, and this was as good as I hoped it would be. I wish in hindsight that I would have just put 15 minutes on the clock for all three pairings. Each of y'all had it in you, and I'm actually looking forward to the after party. I just hope that we can actually still continue listening to each other in the after party, because we're going to be bringing some audience members in. Audience members, if you guys have anything you want to say to them, jump into the waiting room. I see a whole bunch of you guys down in the lounge, but if you want to talk to us, you got to be in the waiting room, and I will drag you guys in from there. And with that, let's fucking look. I'm tired of waiting. I've talked for long enough, and I'm tired. So we're just going to go straight to the votes. So, showing results. Jesus Christ. All right. That is fucking hilarious. The votes came out 24-23 by the slimmest of Democratic margins. 51% of the vote. The final answer goes to the negative. Kay, Castle, and Circa, congratulations. But again, that's so fucking close to split that under normal circumstances, I would just call that a draw. But we don't do that anymore. So we're giving credit to the negative, but obviously that means that the chatters still are torn. All right. So
Whoa! There's a last minute vote, like California.
to tie it up, did it tie up? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I'm sure
that one.
I was about to say we're still gonna give it to the negative because I gave everybody like fucking 15 minutes of me babbling.
Yeah, it was like 15 minutes to vote on that.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. They should have gotten it in there quicker. So, but it was a great fucking job from both teams. Like I said, I really enjoyed that.
Now it's actually us winning. Now it's positive and us winning.
And yeah, it's going to keep going up, I'm sure. So, fun fact: in the VODs, I actually put the straw poll in the footer of the VODs, so people actually keep voting in whenever they watch the videos afterwards. So I actually watch the numbers continue going up as people watch it, even after the debates are done. So I think that's kind of funny too. I don't close off the actual votes, but.
That's an interesting thought experiment right there. Just watching it as it goes on in time.
Yeah, just to see how people decide. So, yeah. All right. Thank you again to all of tonight's debaters, and above all, thank you to all of the viewers. We wouldn't be here without you. The DMZ happens live on Twitch, YouTube, and Kick every Friday and Saturday night, so make sure and follow, like, and subscribe so you will get notifications when we go live. And if you haven't already, join the free Discord server where we take the conversations after the lights go off and the cameras go away. That is where you can tell me if you are interested in participating in the debates. I am the Horseradish, and we hope to see you guys for the next round, here